Hey guys, Pat here. Welcome to Box Office Addict. This is my Sunday podcast, live stream, box office show, whatever the heck it is. Basically, every Sunday I talk about the weekend box office. I look at the budgets, the marketing cost, the distributor, the person who put up the money. There's different investors. If you want more information on this, I would suggest watching my recent video on Blade Runner 2049. Where I go into detail about how Alcon made the movie, and then Sony put money up to help make the movie, and then Warner Brothers distributed the film in America and Canada domestically, while Sony released the film internationally. So a lot of films are that way. So this is a Sunday report to kind of give you the breakdown of those things, and I answer questions in chat, and I talk about things if you haven't seen the show before. I'm going to start giving them episode rankings, because I counted last night to see how many episodes we had, and this is episode number 17. So we've been doing this for 17 weeks now. And I haven't missed 1 week in that whole time, even though there's been some days, some episodes were a little shorter and a little bit longer. But if you follow the money, as they say, if you look at where the money's at, you can see what movies are being made now and why, and the kind of movies that are going to be made in the future. And if you're like, hey, why don't they make more movies like this? It's probably because it isn't making money. And that's what Box Office Addict's all about. It's about giving people context to the movie business and why this is good and why this is bad, because it's all subjective whether or not you like a movie. That's fine. But this show's all about giving you the numbers, because numbers don't lie, and we can look to see if something made money or not, and if audiences responded to it or not. And I've always been a fan of it. It's been a hobby of mine for a long time, and if you're a box office addict, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, like myself, then this is your show. But anyway, Bathory will be the moderator in the chat, as always. She'll be able to kick any of you out if she wants to. My blood countess is here to back me up in case anything goes wrong. I have a cup of coffee here. So this is like a good old Morning Joe, even though it's 5:40 p.m. Sorry if this episode's a little later than usual. Typically, I try to... Well, I guess I've done some episodes like 8 o'clock at night, so what am I even talking about? But anyway, you guys asked some questions. I'm going to hop in here and look at some of the early stuff, like Kingsman and things I just want to address real quick, and then I'll come back and answer some of your questions. So give me some questions ready in the chat, and I'll get back to them. Let me get a drink of this coffee first. Let me Dale Cooper this moment. Damn good coffee. All right, Diane. Yeah, that's what Bathory is. She's like my Diane on Twin Peaks. Or she's my log lady. Either one, I guess. Also, I want to go on a tangent about that movie Ex Machina, because I've been talking about that movie recently a lot with my friend, and I love how that movie's basically about a guy who gets cucked. It's amazing. It's all about cuckery. And there's a lot of things to talk about, obviously. People are going to be asking me about the Louis C.K. stuff, the George Takei stuff. I'm going to do separate videos on all of those topics. I don't really think they have much to do with Box Office Addict, so if you care what I think about that stuff, I do have a Louis C.K. video coming out this week, so that's its own separate thing. Anyway, if everyone's here, let's jump on in. Okay, so I'm going to look at Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which is the sequel to Matthew Vaughn's very popular 2015, was it, film? Yeah, Kingsman: The Secret Service, which was based off a comic book he worked on with Mark Millar. The first film made $414 million worldwide on an $80 million budget, and I don't know what the marketing budget was at the time, but the film overperformed. A lot of people weren't expecting it to do so well. It did $130 million domestic, and like I said, over $400 million worldwide. It was Vaughn's most successful movie, and it kicked off a franchise. He had never made a sequel up until this point. He was supposed to do X-Men: Days of Future Past, and then Bryan Singer took over, and he was talking about doing Kick-Ass 2 before that got taken over by another director. Sadly, this is his worst reviewed film, and the word of mouth isn't as good as the first film, and it's just barely getting to $100 million, just barely. It hasn't gotten to its budget yet domestically, $104 million, but we have to look at the international box office, and so far this has surpassed the original Kingsman, and it's at $293 million, so $393 million worldwide, right under $400 million. So let's make a couple things clear. One, this film did make profit. There's no way they lost money on this with that worldwide total. And two, sequels don't always perform better than the original film. Let's not forget Spider-Man 2 made a lot less than Spider-Man 1. It happens, even though Spider-Man 2 is considered by many people to be a better movie. But, you know, I'm upset about this because I was really excited for this movie, like a lot, and I really liked the first film, and I still think the first film's really good. And if you would have asked me about this a year ago, I'd have been like, oh, that movie's going to open to 50 million and be one of the biggest hits of the year, and I was wrong, and I'm sure the studio kind of thought that too. You know, they put some money into this movie. They got some big names in here. Did it need Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges and Halle Berry and Julianne Moore to be in this? I'm going to argue they didn't need to be in this movie. Really, what made the first film work so much is that it wasn't filled with big stars. I mean, outside of Sam Jackson and Colin Firth, it wasn't a bunch of big-name actors. This is a bunch of stars. It feels like Zoolander 2. Like they're trying to get you to go see it with all these stars. When really it should have just been more about Eggsy and Mark Strong and what they've been doing after that. In fact, even cheapening Colin Firth's death, which spoilers, but it's in the trailer, even cheapening that takes away some of the impact of the first movie. That's an important scene when he dies. That's like one of the most emotional moments in the movie. So they just undercut all that and make what I think was a very lifeless movie, and I think that's reflective in its domestic box office. But at the international box office, it's not doing bad, and it looks like it's going to make a nice little profit. I don't see Kingsman 3 happening soon. Probably a different director and probably with a lower budget, but it probably will happen. I'm not rolling out a Kingsman 3. I could see Eggsy coming back for one more movie. Alright, I'm just going to skip everything down here because none of it's worth talking about, except maybe Suburbicon being down 92% this weekend. Holy crap. Now, they did drop 1,700 theaters, but wow. It's at $85,000. This Clooney bomb is amazing. $2.8 million opening weekend, 2,000 theaters, $5.7 million domestically. Wow. But yeah, all these I've talked too much about. Despicable Me 3, there's nothing to say. It's very successful. Let's see where American Made's at real quick, though, and see. No, that box office is pretty much at the same, 130 million. 132, but it's been at that for a while now, so I don't know if that's open in every market, but it feels like American Made's pretty much wrapped up, and I don't see them making too much profit off of it. Luckily, they didn't spend that much money, but it's hard for me to see how they're going to make any money either, though. They might later on home video and television and stuff like that, of course. The Killing of a Sacred Deer, film I've heard a lot of good things about, 1.5 million, 238 theaters. It's not actually doing that bad so far. I'm just going to skip My Little Pony, the movie. I just don't really see the point talking about that. It's an $8 million television animated adaptation into a film that's not doing that great, like most TV to film adaptations, outside of the very few like The Simpsons or Rugrats. But My Little Ponies, while it has a big fan base, it's not Rugrats or The Simpsons. There's only a few shows that really tap in to the culture in a way. Even South Park, the first South Park movie wasn't a big hit. And that was, you know, South Park was a huge show in 1999. Which is funny, because I'd argue now if they made a South Park movie, it'd be a huge hit. It's just a different time. You know, things change. The reputation of things change, too. That's always an odd thing. You know, the It miniseries and the Stephen King book were so loved in the late 80s and the early 90s. But it's weird. It's almost like now that book and that miniseries and everything is more loved and is more iconic than it ever was then. And it's kind of dated a lot of those things. I have problems with Stephen King's book, and I think the miniseries is flawed, but people have such a great view of those things now. Pennywise is so iconic, I think. And not that he instantly wasn't iconic, but I think that the new film really did capitalize on the fact that its reputation has just gotten insane. I mean, even as just a meme. It's like Deadpool. Deadpool was really popular in the 90s. Everyone knew Deadpool. He was selling comics. His merch sold. But now Deadpool has reached this new level of just complete popularity that, you know, it takes time to get there sometimes. It takes years. Sometimes if you set on something, it does pay off. A lot of the time it's just you didn't even have the money to make the movie you wanted to make originally. You know, they couldn't have made a Deadpool movie in the 90s. It wouldn't have worked. It had to happen in the last few years. Just like, you know, Chris Nolan doing his Batman films, those probably wouldn't have sold as well in the 80s or 90s, and he probably couldn't have made them then, but he could make them at that time, and they hit well. Or Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You couldn't do that years ago. I mean, they did movie serials, don't get me wrong, they used to do that. Marvel's basically going back to old cinema, but they couldn't do it at the scale they're doing it and make it so intricate and have so many moving pieces and all that. You know, it takes a lot of money and time and talent that was hard to acquire at one point because it was all separated. But now that Disney owns everything, really, and there's like maybe there's only really 3 or 4 major studios, and Disney seems to be the only, them and Universal seem to be the only two that consistently make a lot of money. Although I have to assume Warner Brothers kills with the Harry Potter stuff. Don't they still make money off Harry Potter? Like, that didn't just go, like, they have to make merchandising money, don't they? I mean, I don't know, they have, like, one of the biggest movie franchises of all time. Hopefully the sequel to Fantastic Beasts is not only a better movie, because I was disappointed in the first one. I hope it makes more money. Not that the first one didn't make a lot of money. I think it made $800 million worldwide or something crazy like that. Like, it did really well. But I'm hoping the next film they can make like $900 million or something like that, or a little under $1 billion. Just so Warner Brothers can keep Harry Potter and some franchise can break away from the Disney thing, like the Fast and the Furious has for Universal. Where it's kind of become just its own entity unto itself with that cast and everything. Okay. Let's see. Let's move on up. I'm just going to skip The Foreigner. Thank you for your service. Only the Brave. All of these are doing very mediocre domestically. The Foreigner's not actually doing bad considering what it is, that it's Jackie Chan and it's basically Taken, and you know, worldwide it did okay, but thank you for your service and Only the Brave aren't even worth talking about anymore. They're just dropping and they're going to be gone. I'm not saying they're bad movies. Let me get that way. In fact, I'm sure I would like both of those movies. But yeah. Let There Be Light, 30% drop, 1.1 million. $6 million domestically, 773 theaters. Is this a religious film? I have no idea what the heck that film is. This is a new release by Greta Gerwig. I think it's Gerwig. Gerwig, yeah. Greta Gerwig, who was in Francis Ha, the God, I can't think of his name right now. Let me go look. Hold on. Francis Ha, which was directed by, Noah Baumbach, who's famous for doing The Squid and the Whale and Kicking and Screaming and a few other movies. But she was in that a few years ago, very acclaimed film that I wasn't as hot on as other people, but she's been building up an indie rep for a while now. She's been around for, God, a long time. Just looking here, she was working in 2007, but she's been around a long time. Very acclaimed actress, actually, if you go look at reviews. Like 20th Century Women, she got great reviews for her work in that movie. But this is her first step as a director, I believe? No, she directed something before, Nights and Weekends from 2008. I've never saw that. This is one of the best reviewed films of the year. It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes with like an 8.9 rating. And I think it's up to 100 reviews. It might not have 100% right now, but this is easily top 5 best reviewed films of 2017 so far. It looks like it's going to get Oscar nominations for lead actress, possibly screenplay, director, picture. So look out for this film. It's only in 37 theaters and did $364,000 in 4 theaters, and then this weekend in 37 theaters, it made $1.2 million, which is a great performance for 37. Wow, that's amazing. That might be the best. I think that's the best performance for a limited release film this year. Can anyone confirm that? Does anyone know? Yeah, it has 100%. Is that the best? I think it's about her growing up in like Catholic school, and it's like self-biographical, based off Greta's life. It's about like growing. I think I don't really know what it's totally about. The trailer. I couldn't really get a sense of what it was. It looked like a coming-of-age movie, but I don't really know. I don't know a lot about it. I'm excited to see it. I hope it's good. I'm not a huge fan of her, but that doesn't mean she's not a really talented director. Moonlight, Ex Machina, The Witch Room have been a lot better than comedies. Yeah, I think this is the most successful. I'm just going to say that. If I'm wrong, I'll confirm later. But I think this is the best performance for a limited release this year. I don't think any film did this well in 37 theaters. That's a damn good performance to only be in 37 theaters to have to open over $1 million. That's a good sign for this movie that it might end up making some money. And I doubt it was that expensive to make. Okay. I can't wait for A24 to release The Disaster Artist. I think The Disaster Artist is going to be a surprise hit. I actually do. Okay, Happy Death Day. $54 million domestic, $88 million worldwide, $4.8 million budget. Probably had an okay marketing budget, but There's no doubt they made a little bit of profit off this because the budget's so ridiculously low. It's a horror film. It's 2017. They're just making money. I don't know if this will make 100 million worldwide. It doesn't need to, but that would be nice. That would be a nice little period at the end of a successful sentence. So hopefully for that movie, even though I haven't seen it, I hope that it makes 100 million just so they have that. But I think Blumhouse made that, which just makes it another success for them, which is ridiculous. All right, the great Blade Runner 2049, $155 million budget. It's not 150. Box Office Mojo needs to update this because it's been confirmed as 155 by too many sources now. So $155 million budget. The marketing budget was huge. They have over $200 million in this movie. Sony co-financed this film with Alcon, who was the main producer, and a recent Hollywood Reporter article has stated that Alcon could be losing up to $80 million off this movie, while Sony should be making most of their money back because they took less back-end profits, so they get more of their money immediately up front. I did a whole video on this, so I'm not going to focus on this too much. A video I just did, I think yesterday, was all about how much money this movie's going to lose, who's going to lose money where, and it was not really about why it performed the way it did, just how it's performing. But it's at $88 million domestically. It's not going to make $100 million. It outperformed Alien Covenant domestically. Worldwide, it's about the same, but it cost a lot more than Alien Covenant. And for Denis Villeneuve, this is even below domestically his last film, Arrival, which did make $100 million after being in release for quite a while. I think that didn't make $100 million until it was already out for like 60 days or something. But still, yeah, this is coming near the end of its run. I don't even see why they have it out anymore in many theaters. I would kind of just pull it. It's not going to make much more money. Don't jump on that computer, Harambe. Harambe! Ugh, sorry, my bunny. Harambe! Yo, don't move. Hey, listen to me. You little jerk. Listen to me. Harambe! God, oh my god. Oh! Dude! Come on, man. Fine. Alright, but, yeah, $243 million worldwide. Not making a lot of profit off this movie. And some people are saying, like, oh, it made its money back. Only Sony's getting back some of their money. Alcon's losing money, and they might be going under. Was it good? I thought it was a good movie. Blade Runner 2049, but some people don't think it's good. Okay, I'm going to answer some questions real quick before we get into, like, the top 5-ish area. Let me see how long this has been going. Oh, we've only been going about 20 minutes. I can answer questions. All right, I'm going to look through your questions here and give some, Game. Blumhouse has bombs all the time. They just don't release them. I mean, that's probably true, but they have so many hit movies. Does it really matter? I mean, God, Get Out and Split made so much money. They make so much profit off their films, like Annabelle and all that. The profits just so they may not produce that one, but every time they release a film that does well, it makes them so much money. It's a good strategy, though. It seems to work for them. Make a bunch of low-budget movies, low cost, and then you have a huge turnover on the ones that work, and it seems to work for them, because they have I mean, their movies make a lot of money. If it was just making, like, a little bit of extra money, that'd be okay. But the fact that their movies that do well go multiple times their budget is really successful, and they're one of the... I think they have a good formula. I think it's worked out really well for them. It's kind of like Roger Corman if he would have been able to release his stuff a little wider and have more studio backing. It's kind of like that. You just have to make stuff as low budget as possible, but still mainstream. And you give directors chances to prove themselves with a little. But yeah, it was Blumhouse. Yeah, they're on a roll this year. Like, they had that and Split and Get Out. Get Out, they've already said, is one of the most profitable films of the year, and Split's, like, right there with it, because both of them didn't cost anything and made. And then Split's going to have Glass now, the next film, which is going to be a big hit. And M. Night, they're probably going to have to give him a pretty decent budget on that one, though. I don't think he'll be able to make Glass for, like, $10 million with Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson and all that. I think he's going to need some money. So, Sacred Killing Deer reminded you of Nocturnal Animals. Bad actions coming back to haunt you. I love Nocturnal Animals, so that makes me a little happy if that's true. Nocturnal Animals is one of my favorite films from last year. By far, actually. it's not a perfect movie, and I'm not in love with the LA stuff up front, but the stuff that's in the novel that Jake Gyllenhaal's character writes, and that part of the story, I think was like, that might have been my favorite movie last year, had that just been the movie itself, that stuff with him and Michael Shannon. I loved it. I was in love with that movie. And so far I've been a big fan of what is it, Tom Ford? I know it's I can't remember. I think it's Tom Ford. I've been a fan of both of his movies in a row now too. I think he's a very good director. He's a very smart director. Okay, so let's see. Wow, 92%. I'm trying to see if you guys asked any questions. Okay, they're saying that Justice League is getting a meh reception. Any thoughts on the just okay reaction towards Justice League thus far? I mean, that seems like what it was going to be anyway. I mean, it's a film that they were making with Zack Snyder, or Schneeder. Zack Schneeder, as we like to call him here. And they knew it wasn't going well. They planned the reshoots beforehand. Zack Snyder was involved with the reshoot plans. And I think what happened was they knew the movie wasn't working. I think they rushed into production without a fully fleshed out script, which I think is obvious to anyone. Just the same thing with Batman v Superman. There was all that bragging like, oh, Chris Terrio's writing the script. He won an Oscar for Argo. And then you go see Batman v Superman. And you're like, oh, yeah, the Batman scenes seem okay. He didn't write the rest of this crappy movie. This feels like David Goyer. And Justice League, it felt like they rushed into production again. They had to get a release date, and they were all about let's make the movie. They didn't stop to think of they were too busy. They were too concerned whether or not if they could. They didn't stop to think if they should. And they didn't. I don't think they spent enough time really developing a good movie first. Like, what's a good story, 3-act structure? I think they just decided to make a movie and see what happens, and they're trying to figure it out as they go along. It makes sense because you probably have a movie that has some good stuff in it with Zack Snyder's special effects and action scenes, and then you have Joss Whedon probably writing some funny lines and character beats, but the movie, I'm assuming, I haven't seen it, probably doesn't mesh totally. I'm sure it does have tonal issues or pacing issues. I think it's only 2 hours. It probably feels quick and yet overlong at the same time. You know, they had a lot of trouble making that movie, so the fact that it's just okay is the best thing in the world, I think, because there was no way it was going to get rave reviews. There was no way that movie was going to be like 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. It wasn't going to be a Wonder Woman where it got raved on, and it wasn't going to be the Avengers or something. I didn't see that. But, you know, if it's getting okay, that's honestly a better thing for them, because it could have just been getting trashed. Like, they just say it's terrible. An okay movie might still be able to make a lot of money at the box office, you know? I think. I think that's probably the best case scenario for them now. Is like, well, if we can make $1 billion, which they have to make $1 billion on that movie. If they don't, that's going to look really bad. I saw an ad before your Blade Runner 2049 video. Does that mean your videos are monetized again? Most of my videos right now, the new ones are monetized, not all of them. It depends on what the video is. I don't monetize all my videos either. Like the Fall of Hollywood video, I didn't monetize, and I didn't monetize my Andy Signor video because I don't want to make any money off those videos. I have no interest in making money on videos talking about people who sexually harassed and assaulted women or men. I just don't want to make any money off that. So those videos aren't monetized, and I will never monetize those videos. And all of the old Pat videos from the past are all still demonetized. They did just do an update and say the algorithm is changing again, and there's going to be more Harambe, dude, you jerk! Oh my, oh, move! Yes, run, you better, oh my god. Anyway, he keeps hitting keeps jumping on my computer. Yeah, oh my god, he's being a little jerk. Anyway, yeah, the current videos are pretty much all monetized. The movie ones, they still demonetize them right away, but they said that's going to stop less. Now that there's been more reviews, and I had all my stuff reviewed, so I'm thinking I'm okay because I don't think they're really going after the kind of content I make. I still have a copyright claim on original music that my friend made, so that one confuses me. But yeah, it's just what it is. Yeah. Justice League has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I can neither confirm nor deny. What's your take on they're not going to lose any more after home video though. I wouldn't even go with home video, dude. Merchandise is where it's at, really. If we're talking that where they're not going to lose money, it's merchandising. You'd have to think that they sell a lot of Batman stuff and toys, and they sell a lot of Superman stuff and Wonder Woman stuff, and even my nephews, they get like Batman stuff. So I think that's where they're making a lot of their money. Even if the films don't always profit, and they probably do good on home video, but they can make billions of dollars off merchandising alone. That's it, and that's where the money's at. And Batman's never going to stop selling merchandise, and neither is Superman or any of those characters. And if they're getting a cut of that, that's a lot of money. That's like serious money. I recently found out studios tried this strategy years ago with movies after Easy Rider, produced 5 movies for $1 million or below. Notably, Silent Running was one of them. Yeah, well, that was a common practice for a long time. Make a series of low budget films, and basically through the process of elimination, find the talent, find the one that worked, and it could become a hit. That's definitely okay. Who paid for the Blade Runner 2049 marketing? From what I can find, it seems like it was split between Sony and Alcon, because they said Sony gave $110 million and it's a $155 million movie, and Alcon put money up too. So either Alcon paid for all of the marketing, or part of that $110 million Sony put up went into marketing. I'm not sure. I couldn't get clarification on that, but I'm assuming it was split between Alcon and Sony, I think, because from what I couldn't find that Warner Brothers put any money into the movie. But at the end of the year, we'll know all of that for sure. Yeah, it was Tom Ford. Yeah, I really like Tom Ford. Oh yeah, no, they're going to put money into Glass. I think Glass will at least at a minimum cost $50 million. I just don't see how it can't. Like, Sam Jackson's not going to come in for cheap. Bruce Willis, you're not going to be able to get for like $1 million. James McAvoy's going to want more money now. He's not a no-name now. Now he's at a staff. That was a big hit. It's going to have action scenes. I'm not saying M. Night needs a blockbuster budget, but he needs at least $45-50 million, I think, to make that movie properly. You got to remember, Unbreakable was a $90 million movie in 2000, or like 2001. The movie cost like 95. No, it was 70 million. My bad, but it was like a $70 million movie. That was a long time ago. So, I think, I'm not saying M. Night needs 100 mil, but he probably needs at least 50, and I think it's worth investing in. I think you definitely have a film there that's going to make 350 to 400 million worldwide, if not more. That film could make even 500 million worldwide. Because if you bring back all the fans from Split, and then you bring back Unbreakable fans, and M. Night is hot again off Split, he is. As much as I hate to say it, M. Night's got his powers back. You could be looking at his next Signs, like his film that makes a lot of money. So I'd put all the money you could afford on that if you wanted to. Let's see. Looking forward to see Jason Momoa as Aquaman, surprisingly good in The Bad Batch. Do you think Justice League will actually make $1 billion? I think if it does, that's all it'll make. I think the best case scenario would be like 300-something mil domestic and 600-something internationally. I think that's their best case scenario. Because so far, the DC international box office has not been huge. On any of their films, actually. Like, they've all done okay. Like, Batman v Superman did the best, but even that, that didn't even make 600 million. So, the Marvel films outperform them quite consistently on that front at the international. Not always, obviously. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 didn't do as well as Batman v Superman internationally. But it doesn't have to. They put a lot more money into that movie too, Batman v Superman. The problem with DC is they spend too much money. Thank God Wonder Woman, they only spent $149 million. I don't know why it took them that long to figure out, hey, you don't have to spend 200-something million to make a film here. Man of Steel didn't need to cost $220 million. You probably could have made it for $150. Wonder Woman proves you can make a successful $150. Marvel's just much better with budgeting their films. All of them. I mean, their budgets haven't gone... The first Thor movie cost $150 million. The second Thor movie cost $170 million. The third Thor movie cost $180 million. Those are good budgets. Those are all good budgets. Justice League's probably going to cost a lot of money. I mean, at least $250 million. So, you have to... It has to perform better. And I don't know. I think Wonder Woman will give it a boost. I think it can make $1 billion. I don't think it's going to make, like, Avengers money or anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen. The hype's just not there either. It's not even really like... The last stream, I think you had an ad. Yeah, I still get ads on stuff. My ads aren't done. Batman v Superman. I'm sorry. Let me read this. Batman v Superman could make $1 billion. Neither will Justice. I think that's a point to bring up. No, he's not crap. He keeps jumping on my computer. I have 2 laptops in here, and I'm on one, and I have another one near the ground. And he just keeps jumping on it because he likes to jump around and do it. It used to be my hamster made all the noise in her little hamster wheel. But he's just like a little teenage brat bunny. He likes to jump. If you ever watch Shoe on Head's videos and see her bunny, you notice how she's always holding it. When you let bunnies loose, those damn lops, man, they don't listen. They don't. JL isn't even going to have a supermassive opening. It's only estimated to open on par with every other superhero film. I could see it opening to 130 to 140 million, but I don't think it's going to have a huge opening, no. I mean, it could. How much do you guys think the last Avengers movie will make? Oh, Infinity War? Part 1 or Part 2? Do you mean Part 2? If you mean Part 2, I think I can't really make that judge until we see Part 1. They'll keep Glass under 30 mil, in my opinion. See, I don't agree. I mean, if they do, that'll be smart, and we'll talk about that when that comes. But I don't think so at all. I'll say right now, Bruce Willis is going to get $5 million. James McAvoy's probably going to get $3 million, and Sam Jackson's going to get $3 to $5 million. So right there, you're already looking at $12 to $15 million in casting. I mean, maybe. I'm definitely saying it could happen, but I would say Bruce Willis and that alone, just Sam Jackson. Bruce Willis might just get $5 million automatically, and Sam Jackson. And who knows what M. Night's getting too? M. Night might be getting a lot of money up front. I mean, M. Night has power again. Like he'll be able to say, "Hey, I need 40, 50 million to make this movie." I don't think 40 million's a lot to really make it. I think that's considering if the film makes. Let's say it makes 350 million. That's a good budget. But if they go under 30, that would be smart. But I don't see it at all. I think it'll go from like 9 million to 45 or 50 million. I'd be shocked if they made that movie for like $28 million. I don't see it at all. Not even slight. I think. Granted, M. Night is learning to do more, but you got to think about scale. Like Splits all takes place in that room. It's all in that room. I don't think he's going to do that with Glass. From what he's even talking about, he wants to do a lot more ambitious stuff. He wants to have chase scenes and stuff like that. He could do it on a low budget, and I would like if M. Night tried that. But I just can't see them not. I don't know. I think the actors being involved is going to bring the money. That's my theory. I think they're going to give money because there hasn't been a Blumhouse film with like Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson in lead role. I mean, that's pretty big deal, and they made so much money this year. This is the time to put more money into another project and take that next big step because they did so well this year. They have the money to go, hey, let's put the money on Glass and see if we can get a blockbuster. But it could go either way. It really could. We'll have to wait and see on that. And we don't know what kind of movie it is also. No, I'm not at Orient Express. I'm going to get to Orient Express and Daddy's Home 2 in a second. When I do. Do you think Thor will take away from Justice League business? I think it's probably not going to help it that 2 superhero films came out in the same month like that, and they probably share a lot of a similar audience. I think that probably wasn't the best thing for it. Not that you can't share box office, but this isn't Christmas where a lot of movies can make money, so I think it probably hurt it a little bit because a lot of people went to go see Thor, and they're still going to see Thor. So there might be a little bit of fatigue by the time Justice League comes out. You just reminded me of the time my hamster had to stay in my bedroom. Anna's awesome, but its tutorials on how to clean the system brought mine back from the brink. Even if I know everything. I don't know. Who are you talking about, Adam? Are you talking... Who? Adam who? Adam from, like, the Mythbusters, or Adam, your movie sucks? I don't know what Adam you mean. I'm sorry. Alright, I think I got through your questions there. If you guys have some more questions, line them up, and I'll come back and answer them once I get through this next stretch of movies. Okay. Geostorm. $120 million budget. I don't know why they spent that much on this movie. 31 mil domestic, 199 million worldwide, 167 million internationally. Not bad foreign numbers. The problem is this movie's just really expensive, and the domestic total's so crappy. I mean, I just don't see them making much money off this movie. I think they'd have been better off, like I said before, to just keep the budget low. Apparently they put more money into this movie near the end. I would have just kept the budget low, let it have the crappy special effects, and release it. Like, take the bomb, It's not making enough money to really make sense that they put that much... like I said, I think they were going for San Andreas with that. I think they thought they were going to have a hit like that movie, but I think they're not counting that The Rock was just having this huge career boost that year. and he was coming off like Furious 7 or something, and it was like, yeah, everyone was into The Rock. The trailers for San Andreas were actually pretty good. They were smart. It was a smart marketing campaign, just focus on the action and don't show anything else. And it worked out. Well, I think that Geostorm looked bad in the marketing, and the title's just bad. It's a stupid title. It's like Geostorm. It sounds like a Sci-Fi Channel movie. Of course people didn't go see it. $2 million for Tyler Perry's Boo 2 Madea Halloween. $25 million budget for a film that looks like it cost like 500 grand. 46 mil domestic. Will not come close to the previous film's profits, which was 73 million, which is one of the better performing Madea movies or Tyler Perry films. It's actually, it looks like it's the second best performer behind Madea Goes to Jail, which came out a long time ago. But yeah, so yeah, this is unfortunate for Tyler Perry. Well, not for him; he's still making money. But yeah, probably not the best idea to make a sequel. I think maybe you should have done like Medea's Thanksgiving or Madea Goes Christmas. You know, I don't know if doing another Halloween. It wasn't a bad idea. Horror films did well this year, but that first film, for some reason, it seemed to catch on a little bit more during the October season and the fall and all that. Well, this film kind of came and went. But maybe it's just because, you know, Tyler Perry fans even get tired of him doing stuff like this. They're like, oh, you made this before. So that might be it, too. I'm not sure. Jigsaw, $10 million budget, $34 million domestically. Not a great domestic total, but the budget's so low, it's like, eh. It's like the same budget the Saw movies had a decade ago. Like Saw 2, like the Saw 3 and 4 and them, I think, cost like $10 million. But it's made $44 million at the foreign box office, and it's at $80 million worldwide pretty much. So I think it would need to make $100 million to really be like, oh, it did well. Not that it hasn't made profit. This isn't a bomb. I'm not saying that. But, you know, I think it needs to make $100 million worldwide for them to be like, hey, look, we released a new Saw film, and it still made $100 million worldwide. Well, it's, you know, being like, you know, saying like, performed on par with like a little bit below Happy Death Day. Okay. You know, and it cost more than Happy Death Day or Get Out and a lot of those other movies. So I think that's something to consider. To me, this is just mediocre performance that's saved by the fact they didn't spend a lot of money. I don't think this is that great. Compared to especially what the Saw franchise used to do. The Saw franchise used to always bring in, like, it was like a guaranteed $150 million worldwide for a few movies. Or at least like 140. You know, so they were making profit there for a while, but I think they should have waited longer to release this film. I don't think this was the... Also, it probably just shouldn't have been a terrible movie. It's a really, really bad movie. A Bad Mom's Christmas. Good hold this week. 11% drop. I think, yeah, 31% drop, 11 million. But that's a good drop. Not steep at all. It doesn't have the opening weekend of the original film, which had like 23 million. And that film went on to make over 100 million domestically. And I think 180 worldwide. It was a surprise hit of... Was that last year that came out? Let me look. Was that last year? Or was that 2 years ago? Had to have been. Wow, it was last year. So they made a sequel a year after? Jesus. That is one of the most... You know, it's always a bad idea, I've noticed. Like Wayne's World 2. They made Wayne's World. It's a mega hit. You know, it had a script. A lot of it was just kind of improvised, like that scene with Dana Carvey and Mike Myers on the car. They're just riffing for 2 hours. They have to get the shot. Then, you know, Dana Carvey talks about they get a big budget to make the sequel. They get like $30 million. There's all sorts of extras, and there's a lot going on. And they just got overwhelmed by it, and they had to rush into making that movie. And I really like Wayne's World 2. But that you can tell, and it didn't perform nearly as well as Wayne's World 1. Wayne's World 1 made a lot of money. You know, it's like the Hangover sequels. You know, they did a good job with waiting for the Hangover 2, just enough. I think it was really close, but the marketing of that was so much better. Also, the Hangover is like it was a blockbuster basically. But yeah, I think if they were going to make a sequel to Bad Moms, maybe they should have waited till 2018 and given people time to find the old one a little bit more, and then been like, oh, Bad Moms Christmas. Also, they released this film too early. They shouldn't have released it last week, and I think it would have done better closer to Thanksgiving. And I know they don't want to compete against Justice League in that, but this is counter-programming. This is a different kind of film for a different audience than Justice League or Thor in that. So, while the film isn't doing bad, though, like, that's a good hold, and it looks like it's going to make a decent profit because it cost $28 million. I don't think it'll perform as well as the first film, and the thing is, I think it could have had they waited a little longer, and, because, you know, sometimes I just don't think a year is enough time for people to just jump into a franchise again. Sometimes I think you need to give them a break and let people discover it on television and stuff like that. You know, Um, okay, hold on. I'm gonna look for some more questions here. Sorry. It's funny considering that the reason George Miller's Justice League Mortal never came to be was because it would have had a budget of $300 million. Yet a decade later, we have the Justice League with the same budget. I mean, I think not making George Miller's Justice League in retrospect was probably one of the worst things they ever did. Really, because they had to step in on the... And at the time, people said a Justice League movie wouldn't do well. And it's debatable, right, if it would have, made Avengers money. But they might have had to step in to kick into the franchise thing before the MCU ever happened. And they would have... I mean, George Miller's such a great director. He would have made something worth watching. And Armie Hammer was going to be Batman. It is interesting to think about that movie now, like... Because all the money and stuff they've spent years later, could they have just started there and now had this whole thing built up and they would be making the Marvel money? You never know. It's always kind of about taking a risk and that risk paying off. Even that's how the big things seem to... Even Star Wars, the first Star Wars was a total risk at the time. And a lot of people thought it was going to bomb. And, then it became Star Wars. Hey, Pat, do you think Daddy's Home 2 will help get Paramount back into the game after their string of flops? I think it'll help cushion it a little bit, but it's definitely not something that's going to save it. Yeah, no, the marketing, Jesus, yeah, you're not wrong. Okay, I'm trying to see if you guys have any questions. Okay, nope, nothing here, okay. Any thoughts on South Park Season 21 thus far? Yeah, it's the worst season of South Park by far, easily. This is the season I've officially come to the conclusion, because I've been fighting it for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Trey and Matt need to stop doing the show and move on to something else. But Iron Man made superheroes cool and relevant rather than something for kids like Spider-Man or niche like X-Men. I mean, was Spider-Man really for kids? Didn't everyone go see Spider-Man when that movie came out? Wasn't that just like a blockbuster everyone went to go see? I mean, I remember going to the theater, like, everyone saw that movie. I mean, I'm not saying that kids weren't a big audience. I agree with you, but the Avengers was a lot of kids too. I think that I think what Iron Man did was was bring a certain light touch and humor and stuff like that to superhero films that was really likable. But the Marvel films have gotten really jokey and absurd and made a lot of money. Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't have the same tone as Iron Man 1, so that's the impressive thing about Marvel's. They've tackled so many different genres and types of movies, and they all do well. They don't just have one type of success, they have multiple successes, which is pretty impressive. I mean, I think the first season's mediocre now in the second season, but yeah, this season is... This is bad. It feels like 2 old guys that don't know how to be relevant anymore, because for so long Trey and Matt were like ahead of the game. Like they had, they would say something about the world we live in, and it was like, wow, you said the thing we all wanted. But the last few years, I felt like they're just saying stuff that was already said on the internet a year before. Like the PC Principle season, I had already said all that stuff in my videos, the same jokes even. It was just like, oh, you guys are doing this now. And then you come to this season, and this season, I'm really feeling it, where it's just like, because they kept saying, yeah, everyone did see everyone saw Spider-Man. That's the thing I remember, like, that movie was huge. That movie with inflation now adjusted, that movie would have made, like, that's like Batman 89. That's just one of those movies that everybody went to go see. Kids, old people, middle-aged, 20s. It's just one of those films. It was an event movie. But Parker and Stone, they're always saying, like, yeah, they're saying, oh, we want it to be, we want it to take it back to just the boys and them being in the small town and talking, and we don't want to, we don't want to focus on politics and current events. And then every episode this year pretty much has been about current events and them trying to do the satire crap. They didn't follow their promise. And you could tell they're hung out dry. They have nothing to talk about anymore. They're trying, it's really, to me, this, I hate to say this, because I love Trey Parker. If anything, he's the guy that I most want to be. I'm so inspired by him. That it was... Well, Toy Story 1 made a lot of money, but it wasn't like Spider-Man 1 money. Like, Toy Story 1 was a hit, but it wasn't like the biggest hit. It made $330 million in 95, which was a big hit. Don't get me wrong. But, Toy Story merchandise and how that did well on video, that's when that really became the... It was kind of a subtle shift. It wasn't like overnight that CG animated films took over. It was, it took a few years. But Toy Story, it didn't do like Spider-Man 1 money, but it did linger for sure until we got to Toy Story 3, and then it makes 1.1 billion. And what's crazy about Toy Story 3 is they make the first Toy Story and a lot of kids go see it, and then those people that were kids when they saw it in 95 go see Toy Story 3 when they're adults, which is really cool. That was a really cool thing Pixar did there. It was kind of like we all went through boyhood together. And but you know, some movies just people go to see, man. Like, you know, that's all. Some movies, you know, everyone went to go see Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter flick, Sorcerer's Stone. That movie was ridiculously popular. It did better than Spider-Man worldwide. Not domestically, but worldwide that movie made like 975 million in 2002. It was just one of those crazy things. Or was that 2001? I can't remember. I think it was 2001 that Harry Potter might have came out. But yeah, it made just a lot of money. It's not that, man. I'm just you know, I love Trey and Matt. I really do. I mean, I'm obsessed with them, and I know all their behind the scenes stuff. I love Cannibal the Musical. I love Book of Mormon. I love Team America and Orgasmo, and I really like Basketball. But they've kind of just lost their way, in my opinion. I don't think they're trying too hard to stay relevant, and they've told too many stories, and that they're starting to get in that cycle now where they're like, crap, we don't have ideas. And it's the first season I've really felt that, where like Trey doesn't seem inspired in the writers' room, and it sucks because I'm a big fan. Working on a second South Park game doesn't help with the quality of the show. That's the thing. They spend a lot of time on those games, and they write a lot of good material for those games, and they spend a lot of time on those scripts. It's dense with jokes, and I think it does take away from the quality of the show. I think when they were working on Book of Mormon, it took away from the quality of the show. Even though they split that up over years, you can see where their passions lie and what inspires them. And they always say they like to go back to South Park because it's work, and they like the quickness of it. And I get that, but when you're not producing something that's really great, like that great anymore, I think you need to let it go. And I'd much prefer just the last few episodes of South Park where they wrap the story up, give us all this closure, a final statement, really, and then move on. Because I think they've moved past it. I think with Book of Mormon and the other things they made, I think they've evolved past that. And I think they're ready to do other things. I think they should go back to making movies or do another play or something like that. They probably are working on something, quite frankly. They probably have some projects they're working on. I doubt Trey's just sitting around not doing anything. Like, Trey always said he wanted to do a kids film. I think he could make a terrific children's film. I would love to see Trey Parker direct a film for a studio. I think he would be great. You know, he did a voice for, he voiced the bad guy for Despicable Me 3. I would love to see him write and direct just a family film. I think it'd be really good, because he has that quality about him. He has that charming quality about him that animators can have. And, I don't know. I would just like to see him do other things. I'm just done with South Park, man. I just am. It's not worth watching. It used to watch because if you didn't watch it, you were out of the conversation and you had to get the South Park perspective. Now you don't. You really don't. South Park has made no impact this year, and they're not going to. And I think that's going to continue if they keep going with the show into season 22, 23, 24, which I only hope to God they don't do. I'd really just hate to be like, man, South Park sucks now. Are you looking forward to Coco? Yeah, it looks good. It actually looks really good. Like, visually. It looks really good. Alright, guys, let's get to the event of the week since we're at about the 50-minute mark. The top 3. Daddy's Home 2, Murder on the Orient Express, and Thor Ragnarok. Okay, so Thor, of course, won the weekend, and we all knew that was coming, because the first weekend was 120 million. But, having said that, Thor did have a steeper second weekend drop than most predicted, including myself and some other people here. If you put your prediction up last week, and someone in the chat tell me, did anyone guess 55 or 56 million? I guessed 60 million, and I saw other people guessing 65 million, or even higher, and I saw some people guessing lower. If you guessed around 55 million, you were correct, so kudos to whoever did that. But it had a little bit of a steeper drop. I was kind of expecting that while we were going into the weekend. I was thinking, like, you know what? That probably isn't going to be a 65 million. It's probably going to be more like 55. Age of Ultron's budget was 316 million, I think. From what I read, when are we giving out the awards? You just get kudos from me, man. I'll just give you the kudos for guessing it. Alright, well, kudos. Good job. Did you leave it in a comment Did you leave a comment on last week's episode? Is that what you're saying? You guessed around... I mean, I think we all knew it would be around 55 to 60. But getting the exact number right is how you get on The Price is Right, people. You got to get that. All right, 56.6, Bob. You know. College football was off the hook last night. We skipped the movies for the games. I just think it was a busier weekend. Last weekend, Thor was able to come in and kind of dominate. This weekend, look how busy it was. A lot of people went to go see Murder on the Orient Express. That movie way overperformed. And Daddy's Home 2 did really well. And a lot of people thought it was going to underperform. And it actually did really well. So I think they took away a little bit. That's $58 million between the two of them. Had they not come out, Thor might have been able to get to about $60 million. But because of the competition now, I think Thor's not going to... I think it's going to have little steep drops. Not big drops, but, you know, next weekend I don't see it being at $35 million. I think it'll be in the 20s. And then, you know, because word of mouth on this movie is good, but it was front-loaded. A lot of people went to go see it opening weekend. It's just one of those kinds of movies. It's a front-loaded movie. That's not a negative thing. It's not like Wonder Woman where it has an opening weekend that's good and then it builds off that. Thor Ragnarok did so well on its opening weekend, you know, it's just gonna... It made a lot of its money up front. But yeah, good guess, Sean. 50... If you said specifically 56, right on. I heard Age of Ultron's budget was like 250, and because they had tax rebates and stuff like that. I think they spent like $300 million on the movie, but I think the budget actually got down to like... to closer to like 250. I don't think they actually the final budget. Oh, hey, Blood Money. Yeah, I guessed higher too, but I didn't even factor in that Murder and Daddy's Home 2 were both coming out. I should have thought about that because I knew Murder on the Orient Express was going to do well. For some reason, a lot of people for months thought that movie wasn't going to do well. They were like, "Oh, look, it's Kenneth Branagh doing an old movie and book and all that, and he's making." It's like, no, that's a very, very popular thing. It's filled with big stars. Johnny Depp's in it, Daisy Ridley, Josh Gad, which are people know. I know you want to say, oh, people don't care about Josh Gad. No, he's known. And the marketing was good. They focused on the right things. I didn't like the trailers myself, but I knew it was the smart move. And I was saying to myself for months, I go, Murder on the Orient Express is going to do all right. That movie's going to open like 20-something, 30 million. And that's what it did. I think a lot of people were underestimating how well it was going to do. Sports ball on the stupid box, the great enemy of the movie. Hey man, I'd rather watch sports than watch Daddy's Home 2 in the theater, but maybe that's just me. I'd prefer to watch like a football or basketball game than go and sit and watch Daddy's Home 2 for 2 hours. Pretty much, outside of seeing Mel Gibson in it, which is kind of like, holy crap, Mel Gibson's in this. That's amazing. Why hasn't South Park had a body swap episode yet? I don't know. Have they had one? Hasn't everyone done that? Blumhouse did produce Gem and the Holograms for $5 million. Yeah, that's one where it's like, why did you make that movie? That was a weird one. What appeal did they think Gem and the Holograms had? But let's get into the main three and really break this down. Okay, so Murder on the Orient Express is a Fox release. This was directed by Kenneth Branagh. Let me see if he wrote it. No, it was written by Michael Green. Okay. $55 million budget. Now, we don't know the marketing costs on this yet. I'm sure it was pretty decent because I saw a lot of marketing for this movie. But Kenneth Branagh's come off... he's really found success in his later years. You know, when he was a young filmmaker actor, he was most famous for his Shakespeare adaptations and his work on the stage, and in particular Henry V and his Hamlet film. And his Frankenstein film did well worldwide, but domestically it was pretty much a disaster, only making $22 million in comparison to Bram Stoker's Dracula. But yeah, he made a lot of acclaimed films. Much Ado About Nothing. Dead Again's a film that I love. It actually did pretty well, $38 million. But in recent years, in his terrible remake of Sleuth, he made the first Thor, and that made $450 million worldwide in 2011. Then he made Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, which didn't do great domestically. It cost $60 million, it only made $50, but $135 million worldwide. There's a series coming out with Jack Ryan starring John Krasinski on Amazon. But then he did Cinderella for Disney, which made $543 million worldwide on a $95 million budget. That was a huge hit for Disney. And he was, you know, that was coming off Maleficent, and now Beauty and the Beast has made money. So he's part of this whole... He's had good deals with Disney. I mean, Thor and Cinderella both did really well. They could have been bombs. They could have underperformed. They both got really good reviews. Even if you don't like those films, critics did like them. So everything kind of went his way here. You know, he got to be the lead in this movie. Also, he was in Dunkirk this year, which was a big hit. And he's always been a very popular actor, I think. You know, he was in the Harry Potter film. He's always kind of shows up in things like Valkyrie and all that. He was in Wild Wild West, one of the craziest performances ever. But I think everything was well chosen here. You know, the cast. I think Michelle Pfeiffer, Johnny Depp, Judi Dench, Willem Dafoe, Josh Gad. I think those were all really smart choices from a marketing standpoint. I think the story was known, obviously. This was produced by Simon Kinberg, and Ridley Scott was involved with this. And Simon Kinberg's the guy behind the new X-Men films and worked on Deadpool and The Martian. Also Fantastic Four, but Cinderella with Brana. He's had a lot of success, Simon Kinberg, as a producer recently. So this was the perfect storm of things, the producers and all that. It's getting mediocre reviews. It's got like 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I saw this trailer a lot in the theater. People seem to respond to it. It just shows that if you get enough, big names together, you can sell a movie on the ensemble and just the name and the pedigree of the property alone. And yeah, it worked out for. I mean, this could have been a bigger opening weekend. Could have been like $35 million in another world, but $55 million budget, $28 million opening weekend. That's not bad. We're gonna have to see the word of mouth to see how it holds in the coming weeks, but I imagine worldwide this will end up making a profit for the studios, whoever put the money in. So kudos to everyone involved on this. A lot of people were underselling this movie for a long time, and it's performing a lot better. Could you imagine a South Park episode or arc where Kyle and Cartman swap bodies? Some kind of potential. I mean, yeah, I'm into this body swap idea. I was expecting a flop for Express because so often these movies with giant ensembles or stunt casting don't seem to get anywhere. I agree with you. That's definitely true that happens, but this does show the opposite to that where it can be successful. But I do agree with you, the ensemble thing sometimes does blow up in their face. But this was one of those times it really worked out for everyone involved. He was a sex symbol in the early 90s. He was married to Emma Thompson, who was also a sex symbol, and I still think an attractive woman. But she was particularly attractive in the 90s when she made like Sense and Sensibility and co-wrote that. She wrote that screenplay. They were like a power couple. They were both like actors, staged. They were stage thespians. They both wrote and worked on things. That's why I really like Dead Again. It's kind of a collaboration between the two of them. There won't be much compromising M. Night's vision for Glass. Yeah, I don't think there will be at all. I think they're going to let M. Night do whatever the heck he wants on Glass. I don't think anyone's going to tell him what to do. I doubt it. Yeah, I don't think M. Night's going to run into any issues on Glass. I think he's going to make exactly the movie he wants to make, for better or worse. We'll have to see it first, but yeah, Kenneth Branagh and his wife, both very, they were good looking in that very British, way. I know, but yeah, he's made a real big comeback as a filmmaker. He was always a very acclaimed director, but financially, he seems to have a bit of a following, and his films do pretty well, and he's consistently done it now for a few movies. So, really, I think the biggest success here is Kenneth Branagh. Because this is his movie in a lot of ways. He's probably the one that really got this project pushed forward, and it paid off, and that's good for him. How does the version of Express hold up to the Lumet version? I haven't seen it. I'm assuming it's not nearly as good as the Lumet version, but that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I've just heard it's a movie that tries to do too many things and Branagh can't figure out. I hear he overcomplicates what could be a very simple movie, but I have heard unanimously that this movie is one of the best shot films of the year, and the production design. I've heard that the cinematography for this current version of Orient will probably get. I've heard Oscar talk about the costumes and cinematography. Compared to the original film, I don't know. I don't know what the original film did. Let's look. Sidney Lumet, he had some movies that did really well. Well, it made $27 million in 1974, so it did pretty well, actually. Because let's go back and look at that adjusted for ticket price inflation. That would be $131 million. So yeah, the original Murder on the Orient Express was a big hit. Really, when you look at it, especially when its costs are considered, it wasn't that expensive of a movie. Yeah, Lumet had some success in his career. Dog Day Afternoon made $50 million domestic in the 70s. Serpico made like $30 million in 73, which, when you adjusted for ticket, that was over $100 million. He had some hits in his day. But Yeah, wow. Yeah, 131 million. So, yeah, if you look at it that way, uh, I don't think it's going to make that much money. But it is a different market today, so you have to factor that in. And they're streaming now, and people download movies. But by comparison, I would say this isn't domestically going to probably have as many ticket sales as the original Murder on the Orient Express. But at the worldwide box office, I think it'll end up making a lot more money down the road. Like, I could see this making, 300 million world. It could. I'm not saying it will, but I could see it happening if it catches on in some markets. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But even if it makes 250 million, that's a good performance. I forgot the original did so well. And that original's been out so long, they've probably made quite a bit of money off that movie just with just DVD sales and all that. But really, when you think about that original film had really big actors in it, like I mean, Sean Connery and all that. It had legends in it. That it's hard to top movie stars of that level today. Is the main thing. But yeah, Murder on the Orient Express, surprise success, I think, for a lot of people. Daddy's Home 2 was also a surprise this weekend. This film was tracking low when in comparison to the first film, which was a holiday release from 2 years ago. And Sean Anders directed it. He did Horrible Bosses 2, which performed well below the original Horrible Bosses, which was one of the surprising hits the year it came out. It didn't do as well, the sequel. And he directed That's My Boy, one of Adam Sandler's least popular films. Sex Drive was a kind of a bomb from a few years ago. But he had huge success with Daddy's Home. Putting Mark Wahlberg with Will Ferrell ended up being a very popular idea. Now, they had done this before with, God, what was it called? The Something Guys? God, what was that movie called? Let me look here real quick. Because I saw that movie years ago when it came out. The Other Guys. Yeah, The Other Guys with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. That was a big hit back in, I mean, it cost $100 million. It made $170 million, so they probably didn't make too much profit because for some reason Adam McKay can't make a low-budget comedy. It's really weird. Look how much The Big Short cost. The Big Short cost $28 million. This is a film that got several Oscar nominations and made $133 million worldwide. Then let's look at the price for Anchorman 2. $50 million. The Other Guys cost $100 million. Step Brothers, I think, cost $65 million, yes. Talladega Nights cost $72 million. The first Anchorman had a modest budget of $26 million. But yeah, like, for some reason, he can't keep his calm. I don't know. The Other Guys, they spent way too much money on that movie. I thought that when that came out, I was like, why'd you spend $100 million on that? There's action scenes in that movie doesn't need that are expensive. Like, you could tell they spent a lot of money to get the special effects and camera work and editing they wanted. But anyway, Daddy's Home was a big hit, and it turned out that this high concept thing, the sitcom situation, Mark Wahlberg is the tough, cool stepdad, Will Ferrell's the dorky guy, really paid off. I mean, it was a big success, and Will Ferrell has been off and on with some of his films. The House is the biggest bomb of his career, I think. Zoolander 2 didn't do well. Get Hard did good, but it was really front-loaded and only did well because the budget was so, not too high. Lego Movie did really well, but I don't really consider him the main reason for that. He's in that movie for like 5 minutes, really, as a cameo. Anchorman 2 did good. It did pretty good. It made $127 million domestic. So that was one of his better performing ones recently. But if you look here, yeah, $86 million. Will Ferrell, not all of his films have been, Talladega Nights or Elf. He's very successful, but Daddy's Home was one of his bigger hits. It was a really successful movie. And I can't remember what the budget was, but I think it was something like $40 million or something like that. And had a $38 million opening weekend on Christmas, which was a genius release strategy. Ended up making $150 million domestic and $242 million worldwide. Now, this film wasn't tracking as well, and a lot of people were saying it was going to open in a disappointing fashion. That it was going to open at like $20 million was what a lot of sites were saying. But the numbers came in Friday, and the film was doing a lot better than people were expecting. The concept here is let's bring the fathers in of Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, and that's John Lithgow and Mel Gibson, who have both dealt with, Mel Gibson, has dealt with some controversy recently. But this is a big bounce back for Gibson, too, because a lot of his movies, Hacksaw Ridge was a very successful movie, but movies that he starred in haven't done that well since Signs. So maybe some of that Mel Gibson stigma is really starting to wear off. But the numbers were coming in low. I was reading predictions in like the low 20s, and then this was fighting with Murder on the Orient Express on Friday, and it was kind of saying who was going to get over. And I think we all knew this was going to get the edge because it's a family movie, but they were both looking at about 27 million. Murder ended up going 28 million, and this film's made 30 million. So good opening weekend. $69 million budget. It's higher than the first film, but this is a holiday movie. Thanksgiving's coming up. Then this will probably play well through December. Once again, maybe they release this a little early, but that opening weekend's solid, and if they can get a boost in December, this film could easily make $100 million domestic. And then you add that with the international box office, we're looking at another film that's probably going to make $200 million. I doubt it's going to make close to the profits the first film did, but as long as it makes profit, it's not an unsuccessful sequel, and it shows that Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell can bring people in consistently. Mark Wahlberg's been a very successful movie star for just a decade now. You know, if it's not... I mean, Patriots Day and Deepwater Horizon both were pretty much bombs when you factor in their budgets. But, you know, when he does something like a Ted, or when he came into Transformers, or a Lone Survivor, you know, or movies like that he's in, those are such smart choices from him. The Fighter made a lot of money. You know, Date Night, he does cameos and stuff like that. You know, he's had bombs, The Lovely Bones, Max Payne. But for all of those bombs he has a lot of films that, you know, did really well that he got to be a part of. And, you know, The Italian Job, The Departed, Invincible did well, Four Brothers did well. So Mark Wahlberg's had a very successful career now for pretty much a decade, I'd say. Even when his films don't do well, they don't typically lose money. A lot of his films don't lose money, like Contraband didn't lose money, Ted 2 didn't lose any money. It didn't perform as well as the first Ted, but it still made $216 million worldwide. You know, his only films recently that really underperformed, I think, were Deepwater Horizon and Patriots Day. But everything else, you know, Two Guns did all right. You know, he does have a consistent track record, and I think he's a big factor why these movies do so well. And Will Ferrell seems to do at his best when he's played against other people. You know, The House just didn't do well because I think they overestimated the popularity of Ralphie from The League and Amy Poehler with mainstream audiences, and I think they didn't sell that movie very well. And Zoolander 2 was an unfortunate bomb, and it just wasn't a very good movie. But this made sense to make a sequel to Daddy's Home, and yeah, 30 million opening weekend. That ain't bad. It's not bad at all, really. This was distributed by Paramount, so it's a PG-13 film comedy. We'll see how it plays over the holidays. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think 30 million is a good opening weekend? I want to know. Patriots Day and Deepwater Horizon were paid by the CIA, so they don't count. As a Jew, we're all forgave Mel as soon as he made money again. It doesn't hurt that he looks great compared to everyone else in Hollywood. Yeah, you know, one time Mel Gibson, man, you talk about a movie star, man. He really had some power in the 90s and 2000s. Oh yeah, the Han Solo film's definitely going to cost $200 million now. There's no way it won't. It's been confirmed they pretty much reshot the whole movie. Like 80% of the movie has been reshot, and they've put money into it. If it was a $150 million film before, it's definitely costing $200 million now. Doesn't mean it still won't make money, but that's definitely going to be an expensive movie. What are your thoughts on Justice League? Well, I don't have thoughts on it because I haven't seen the movie yet, man. Once I see the movie, there will be a review up, and I will talk about it. Wasn't Will Ferrell also the main villain? Yeah, he did the voice of the main villain in Lego Movie, yes. I don't think that, you know, that movie made a lot of money. I don't think it was because of Will Ferrell. Like, a lot of people go, oh, that's one of Will Ferrell's most successful movies. It's like, okay, well, so's Megamind and some other... I mean, I agree, but, you know, Toy Story franchise is one of Tom Hanks' biggest things either, and it's a voice... It's just different. You're not selling it as much on, like, the actor as much as you are the property and the animation and the story and the concepts, you know. Albert Brooks and Ellen DeGeneres are great in Finding Nemo, but I think why it had a big opening weekend up front was because it was Pixar and the animation looked good and people wanted to go see Finding Nemo. Yeah, what do I think the final budget on Han Solo is going to be? If I had to guess, from what I've been reading, because I have to assume that the original budget was probably somewhere around $150 million, which was like Rogue One. Rogue One cost $150 million, the reshoots, but how much they spent... My guess is anywhere from $200 to $225 million for Han Solo. $200 million is probably what they're going to release, though, but at least $200 million that film's going to cost. And it's not because they overspent, it's just because they reshot, like, most of the movie, so they had to spend, probably, I'm assuming, another $50 to $80 million, if not more, to remake to remake a lot of the movie. And then they probably kept a lot of the exterior shots and some of the special effect shots that Miller and Chris Lord and Miller did. Yeah. I hope that money was spent on fun because it's clearly not on screen. Brutal, man. Brutal. Any thoughts on Paramount reinventing the movie studios by hiring the producer of the Twilight movies? I mean, you know, the producer of the Twilight movie. Yeah, I think The Disaster Artist will be good. It's been getting rave reviews. They say it's James Franco's best performance, which doesn't mean much considering he's only been good in like 2 movies ever. But I think Tommy Wiseau's story's worth telling, and the trailer reminds me completely of Ed Wood. That seems like what they're even going for is Ed Wood. And Ed Wood's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's just fun to watch a movie about people who are bad at something and they want to do something. And it's not good. But Tommy Wiseau's story's an interesting story. Tommy was so fascinating as a person. Almost a documentary couldn't do justice to him. What do I think about Joe Wright in The Darkest Hour? What do I think about the director, Joe Wright? I think he's hit and miss. I think Hannah was amazing and reminded me of Run Lola Run. Reminded me, what's his name? Tom Tykwer? I can't remember the damn name of the guy who directed Run Lola Run, but had a very disappointing career. But Hannah showed Joe Wright has a lot of style. Awesome score by the Dust Brothers. And then I like Pride and Prejudice quite a bit, and I thought Atonement was all right. I haven't liked any of his movies much lately, like the Peter Pan movie, but Joe Wright's a good director. I think Joe Wright's he's mastered the tracking shot. He's one of the best guys at doing. There's a lot of people that do the tracking shot. I feel it's so indulgent. Sometimes what I like about his tracking shots is it almost seems necessary for visual storytelling. Like he framed that story beat in his mind in that way. Very good filmmaker. I'm not sure if he's the world's best storyteller always, but when he has a good script, he's a damn good director. And I thought Hannah showed that he had a unique style. Like Hannah was really unique in the action scenes and the way he edited music. When I saw that in the theater, I kind of walked out like, man, that was a different kind of movie, you know. And it's intense. It's got some logical issues and plot holes, but man, like the meat of that movie is really cool. Hey Pat. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, he's German. Yeah, German. Run Lola Run. Yeah, Run Lola Run's amazing. Lola Runt. Is it Lola Rent? Lola Rent, I think is how you say it. But one of my favorite movies of all time. But yeah, sadly, his career has just been really disappointing. He's still really talented visually, like when he made Perfume and all that. But man, like, when I was young and I saw Run Lola Run, I thought this guy's the next big thing, man. This is like one of the best edited, cut, paced movies I've ever seen, you know. And the energy it had was just crazy. And I thought Hannah had a great energy to it. I did like it. I think Joe Wright would be a good choice to direct a Bond movie, actually. Maybe he should do the next Daniel Craig Bond movie. That's not a bad choice. I'd be into Joe Wright. He could do action scenes from what we saw in Hannah. And, you know, he's made enough movies now. Maybe he wouldn't be a bad choice, actually. But yeah, I'm very excited for The Disaster Artist. I like everything I've seen of it. I was worried at first that it was going to be, just like a remake of The Room. But now that I've seen more of it, it does look like they're doing the Ed Wood thing where it's more about the guy and his dreams and all that and what he's doing. And that just works for a movie. That's a great formula. For some reason, it's like movies about people making movies is always interesting to me. I always like it. Every movie I've ever seen, pretty much, it was about anything behind the scenes of a radio show, like talk radio or Pump Up the Volume, behind the scenes. Even that movie Soap Dish, I adore. Like, anything that's about the behind-the-scenes going on. It was my favorite stuff about Birdman, was the comedic stuff about the world behind it, all about Eve. I mean, for some reason, it just works in movies. It makes interesting stories to see other people try and create things and fail and succeed in other ways. It's a very compelling... for me, it's always been very... I can't think of many movies about Hollywood and making that I don't like. I like pretty much all of them. Like, going down the list... I've only seen a couple episodes of Mindhunter, so I can't really do a review of it yet. Down the road. So how do you think we'll win at the box office? What do you mean? What do I think will win at the box office? I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what you mean. Hey Pat, apparently there's been leaks to say that not only is Star Wars 8 just a retread of Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, but also that Rey is reincarnated Anakin. I mean, that's been a rumor for a while that she's a reincarnated Anakin. I don't believe that. That sounds so stupid. I think that's just fan theory stuff. I don't think Rian Johnson wrote that. I think he has some secret with Rey, but I don't think that she's reincarnated Anakin. I mean, they might do that, but I think we have to wait and see the movie. I'm not sure I buy those rumors. And I think he's going to take beats from Empire. Of course. Yeah, Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like for some reason, movies about movies are always entertaining. You know, it's that terrific film David Mamet made. What was that film called? God, David Mamet made an amazing comedy in the 2000s that was kind of about, like, the industry and the behind-the-scenes stuff. Damn, what's the name of that movie? It's an amazing... People overlook it all the time. Let me go look up what that... Unless somebody in the chat could remind me the name of that movie. It's got, like, Alec Baldwin in it, and, a lot of actors, actually. I think it's called, like, State and Maine. Yeah, State and Maine, man. If you haven't seen this movie, this is a film I highly recommend. State and Maine from David Mamet. From 2000. This is one of the most underrated comedies ever made. It's a brilliant comedy about just the industry and actors and behind it. It's genius. And people never talk about it, because David Mamet made so many good movies. People just kind of always focus on The Spanish Prisoner and all that stuff. But State and Maine is actually is great. And it's worth checking out. And Maine and State. He also, yeah, he did that movie. Didn't he do The Butcher Boy? Which is like another, was that God, I think it was called The Butcher Boy or The Baker's Boy. That was like an amazing, like he made all these, like David Mamet's made like 6 masterpieces. Oh, The Player's definitely my what was the big budget flop at State and Maine? Did State and Maine have a big budget? I didn't think it had a big budget. I thought State and Maine had a pretty conservative... I mean, it wasn't a cheap movie, but I don't think it was like... I think it bombed, but I don't think... Did that movie cost like $50 million? I don't remember. I thought it cost like 20-something million. It did lose money, though. I do remember that. No, The Player's definitely my favorite of the whole... I think that No, I might like Ed Wood better. I'm not sure. We'll have to see about that. I don't know. Because I do think Ed Wood has a heart that few of those films have. What did State and Maine cost? Well, I wish they would... What's the dang budget? Come on. Well, thank you for not telling us the budget. Yeah, I'm not sure what the budget on State and Maine was. I guess, I don't know. I thought it'd be on Wikipedia. They typically have the budgets for that kind of stuff. I'll have to look that up later and find out. Yeah, but Mamet, yeah, great. Mamet never really had a hit movie, unfortunately. All of his films just did meh. Like, even Glengarry Glen Ross wasn't a big hit. I mean, he didn't direct that, but he wrote the screenplay. But, like, if you go look at all of his films, Red Belt didn't do great. Spartan didn't do great. Heist did all right. State and Maine didn't do well. The Winslow Boy, that's the film. I think The Butcher Boy is that film by Neil Jordan, where the boy has the visions. Yeah, The Winslow Boy. This is another amazing movie. This is like one of the best movies I've ever seen, and nobody really talks about it. It was only released in 141 theaters. Yeah, The Spanish Prisoner only made $9 million. Incredible film. Maybe Steve Martin's best performance ever is in that movie. Homicide is a great movie. House of Cards only made $2 million. So, despite his huge success in theater, David Mamet, unfortunately, he's had success as a writer. He wrote The Untouchables and stuff. Like he's worked on successful movies. Like obviously, like yeah, The Untouchables made a lot of money. He wrote The Verdict, which made $53 million back then. Yeah, even look at this. Glengarry Glen Ross only made $10 million. He worked on the script of Hannibal, which, you know, was a big hit for him and Ridley Scott. So it's one of Ridley Scott's worst movies, one of David Mamet's worst scripts, and it's one of the most successful films both of them ever made. Like, it made 350... This is what happens when Jonathan Demme makes a masterpiece. You can just make a terrible sequel, and it'll still make a crap load of money. Because the hype was just there, man. Hannibal had crazy hype when it came out. Ed Wood is on par with The Player. They are different to compare. That's true. They're very different, but I definitely... Those are the two that I... Oh, 8.5 by Fellini, obviously. Also, American Movie, if you've ever seen that documentary about a guy who's trying to make his film Coven, and he's trying to raise the money so he can finish it, and he lives with his mom, and he hangs out with his buddy from a small town. That's an amazing movie. It's like Wayne's World in real life. Like, it's so funny, and the guy's story's so honest, and the way he talks about making movies and being inspired. It's a really good movie. I think it's called American Movie, but there's some of the funniest movie lines ever in that film, man. Here's what I'm doing, man. I'm sitting here cleaning up shit in a stall, man. That's what I'm doing, but that's the shit, man. Or it's his friend Mike, who's like, so, like, I used to, like, want to party and just, like, get messed up and get angry and party hard, and then he came over with vodka. Either he had a bottle of vodka or I had a bottle of vodka. Either way, we were drinking vodka, and I was just really happy somebody was there to party with me. It's the whole movie, and they're making a movie. He's having his mom out there film for him. He's like, will you lay my soda over there, please, for me? One of the funniest documentaries ever, American Movie. And it's a great testament to the artist struggle and quality and just making something, even if it's not good or not. And he actually had talent. He had a good eye. He needs to kind of become a cult figure. I can't even remember the guy's name anymore. What's your thoughts of End of Evangelion as a movie? Or Evangelion, my bad. I always say Evangelion. What's End of Evangelion? It's okay. I actually quite like it compared to a lot of the things. I own it on Blu-ray. I'll say this: visually, it's a masterpiece, and thematically, it's got a lot of great stuff in it. But I still think it's not. I know a lot of people consider it like a masterwork of anime. I know a lot of people think it's like it's one of the great things, like it's up there with Akira and stuff like that. But I think it's good. It's definitely better than the ending of the series originally when the budget got cut. Congratulations! But I do own it on Blu-ray and I watched a few times. It's got crazy stuff in it, man. Some of the fight scenes in that movie are crazy, and you know, I love the memes from it. So I'll be on the bandwagon. I like End of Evangelion. I think it's a good movie. Yeah, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10 as a movie. You know, and for me, that's pretty, because I don't like a lot of anime stuff. So I think, but I think it's very ambitious, and it's got some good stuff in it. They also hate James Wood because he's conservative and can beat any celebrity that argues with him because of his intellect. Yeah, that does seem to be an issue. They seem to, yeah, James Wood's apparently like, yeah, really, really, really smart, and it's tough to argue with him about things. Congratulations! Yeah. The original ending of Evangelion. It's so funny. The Evangelion manga adaptation has a really great ending, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, congratulations! It's funny every time I think about it. The Untouchables. Love De Palma's direction, not his writing. Well, he didn't write that movie. David Mamet wrote that movie, and man, does it have some over-the-top dialogue and stuff. I love quoting that movie. The Untouchables is ridiculous. It's as hammy as Mamet ever got. But the direction on that movie is seamless, amazing. The production value, the sets, the way... De Palma's direction was always amazing. Always. There's not a movie De Palma ever directed that's directed poor. Even Bonfire of the Vanities has brilliance in it. Brilliance. It's a mess of a movie. The script's a mess, but there's genius filmmaking throughout the whole thing. Snake Eyes is one of my favorite thrillers. I think it's very overlooked. It's how you view De Palma. You have to go into Palma and view his movies as comedies, because that's what they are. They're comedies and satirical and stuff like that. They're not trying to be serious. If you try to watch it as a serious movie... I think it depends on the De Palma movie, like Blowout. I think Blowout's a great film. I think Blowout's like a minor masterwork. Or Carrie, I think, is very good. I like Body Double quite a bit. It depends. You know, I definitely agree with you that he wasn't as good of a writer as he was a director. I completely agree with that. I have no... his strengths were definitely... But I know it's supposed to be hammy, dude, but it's almost too hammy. You know what I mean? Like, there's the juxtaposition doesn't always work with him making this classic Hollywood film in the 80s and then the hammy dialogue. And sometimes it works wonderfully. There's scenes that are perfect in that movie, don't get me wrong. But there's also moments where it's like, oh my god, Kevin Costner's so cheese in this film. I'd even say Kevin Costner's miscast in that film. Like, every time I watch The Untouchables, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Costner, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know if he should have been this part. I'm not really sure if he's carrying this movie enough. Don't get me wrong, I think Morricone's score to that movie's maybe right there at the top of all of his scores. I think the production design and everything in the I mean, I own the Untouchables on Blu-ray and have seen it like 100 times. I love that movie, but it's got parts in it. You know, De Niro goes a little over the top, and the baseball bat scene isn't as classic to me as other people. I'm just not as into a lot of that stuff. But the final shootout on the building's great. Sean Connery's great in it. There's a lot of really fun, entertaining moments. It's a suspenseful movie. But yeah, Blowout's a masterpiece. Yeah, I agree. And he made a really good film, Sisters, in the 70s. And then he made a film with Rob De Niro in the 60s, like his first movie, and it's really good too, and I can't remember the name of it. I've seen all of De Palma's movies. He just made a lot. But he made a lot of good movies. He had a rough patch. I'd say there was a point in the 90s he really started hitting a rough patch. I mean, Mission Impossible is a fun movie, but even that has a lot of tonal issues. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10 movie. I'll put it that way with The Untouchables. It shreds in like a way a lot of 8 out of 10 movies does, but it is not a masterpiece and it's flawed to hell. But it's definitely a solid flick, and I'd even go as far as say even maybe a great movie. But yeah, it's one of those like 8 out of 10 movies that's solid 8 out of 10. But if you give it higher than that, it's insane. If you think that movie's a 10, it's like just stop. The stairway shootout's cool, even though De Palma took that all from another movie. It's awesome. It's a great sequence, but Goodfellas and The Godfather and other crime films, it's like Scarface. Scarface has hammy stuff that's amazing, and it's great, and the satire's all there, but it's not a masterpiece. It all doesn't mesh. It's not all coherent. It doesn't all work as a whole. But that's because De Palma... Really, The Untouchables is one of De Palma's more tame movies. It's a mainstream film from him. His other films are a lot weirder. I don't know. I'm more into like the hamminess of Body Double than I am into some of the stuff in Scarface. Even though we're wrong, I love Scarface. The chainsaw sequence is amazing. It's all great. I mean, Morricone should have won several times. Let's just go down the list of films Morricone should have won for. The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. He should have won the score. Once Upon a Time in America. He should have won. Let's just go. Once Upon a Time in America is one of the greatest scores of all time and one of the best movies ever made. And because of a terrible release domestically where they cut the movie down from 4 hours to 2 hours and 20 minutes, they destroyed that movie. They destroyed that movie and its Oscar campaign. He should have won for score for that movie. He should have won for Cinema Paradiso. Totally. One of the great scores. He should have been nominated for several scores. I'm just naming ones he should have won for. Should have been. I mean, there's the fact that he didn't win for Cinema Paradiso is crazy, but I'll just give that. But he should have already had 2 or 3 Oscars by the time he won for Hateful Eight. Morricone is definitely like top composers of all time, and it's not even a question. It's a fact. The sky is blue. You know, like food is good. You know, Morricone is a genius. That's how it is. Scorsese and De Palma and George Lucas used De Niro for student films. Yeah, that was all it was all very incestuous. There was a lot of that going on. De Niro got a lot of the work later on. Richard Dreyfuss, a lot of these people, because they all knew each other. Like, Richard Dreyfuss basically got his role in Jaws because of American Graffiti. Harrison Ford is in the conversation because of American Graffiti, and then he's in Apocalypse Now and Star Wars. If you go back to those early, you'll find out that they were all kind of working with De Niro and a lot of those guys. Pacino was the one that kind of came in as an outsider. Pacino was a Tony Award-winning actor and had done one film, I think The Panic in Needle Park or something, and he was a tough sell for the studio. They didn't want him on The Godfather. They wanted a bigger name like Robert Redford, and Coppola had to fight for him. So, but De Niro was already very much friends with a lot of these people. De Niro was just waiting to happen, you know. Everyone, you know, Coppola knew he was great when he auditioned for The Godfather. He auditioned for Sonny. He's like, you're amazing. It just took a little while for Godfather Part 2, Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, but they all knew early on that he was going to be... I mean, they all talk about it. They all loved the energy De Niro would bring to stuff, how intense he was about his acting. Yeah, Duvall, too. Yeah, Duvall didn't start his career until late in life. Wasn't his first movie To Kill a Mockingbird? Wasn't that like his first or second movie, and he was already like in his mid-30s or so? Like, Duvall took a while to catch on, you know, and he's one of the greatest actors of all time, easily. And it's like, wow, it's weird how... It's like Sam Jackson. He didn't have his breakout role until he was in his 40s. It takes a long time. But yeah, it all goes back to those guys, really, the film brats and all them knowing each other. It's kind of crazy to think about that George Lucas was hanging out with Francis Ford Coppola and Spielberg and Brian De Palma, and Scorsese was around, and they all, like, they even worked on the Woodstock movie. As far as I think, Scorsese and George Lucas both did editing or camera work or something for the Woodstock documentary. And it's just crazy to think about them all hanging out and talking about the future and what they want to do, and they want to change Hollywood, and then they did. Like, it's nuts. They were all so inspired by the new wave and what was happening with film in the late 60s with movies like Easy Rider and Midnight Cowboy. And then they all just came out. It was an explosion, man. And then, and honestly, you have to consider some guys in that group, like Woody Allen, even though he wasn't in that circle, Woody Allen really blossomed in the 70s. And changed a lot of those directors. Mel Brooks, even though he had made The Producers, his big blow-up time was in the early 70s when he did Young Frankenstein, and Blazing Saddles came out in the same year and were both mega hits, The 70s was just that decade. It was an explosion of creativity that we really haven't seen since, I don't think. I don't think we've seen that many good directors. Yeah, no, she was. Jim Caviezel, he was friends with all of them. Look at Jim Caviezel's career. He was only in 5 movies, I think, and they were all nominated for Best Picture. He was in The Godfather Part 2, Dog Day Afternoon, The Deer Hunter, and The Conversation. And every film was nominated for Best Picture. And he's one of the best character actors I've ever seen. And he was dying of cancer when they were filming The Deer Hunter. And he was engaged to Meryl Streep. And was dying when he was making that film. And if you watch that film, it's a very painful performance. That was that his name? Was it Jim Caviezel? No, what was it? Jim? What's his? I think I said. What was his dang name? I think I got his name wrong. I'm sorry. I'm not doing the guy justice. Fredo from The Godfather. Fredo, if you ever go against the family again. I think I said his name completely wrong. Which I think I just had someone else's name in my head. Damn, where is he? I don't see him on the main cast list here. Hold on. Yeah, I said the total name wrong. I apologize for that. Come on, where's he at? Oh my god. Why is he not, like, at the top of the list of Godfather cast? That makes no sense. Oh, there he is. Yeah, John Cazale. Sorry. John Cazale. One of my favorite actors of all. Yeah, Jim Caviezel was Jesus, my bad. That's they kind of have a similar name now that you see John Caviezel. Yeah, now I see I'll get that mixed up. Yeah, Jim Caviezel was also on their Wonder Years in an episode. He was the basketball hero at Kevin's school in one of his early roles. But yeah, John, I guess it's Cazale or Cazale. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, but yeah, oh, there you go. There's a pronunciation on Wikipedia. Yeah, he unfortunately passed away at the age of 42. And he wasn't in many movies. He was only in, he was in, well, The American Way. He was in that. But yeah, this was all of his career pretty much. And he was a luck charm for a lot of these guys. Coppola loved him. Lucas loved him. Lumet. That's a completely different person. But yes. Yes, it is. Jim Caviezel and John Cazale are not the same person. Nobody messes with Jesus. But yeah, Fredo from The Godfather. That's how most people know him. They're just like, Fredo from The Godfather. Because, he's got the big scene. He's got big scenes in both movies. God, he's got the big scene in the second one where Al Pacino grabs him. And I was like, I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. But yeah, amazing character actor, man. He really felt like those people when he played those parts. And I'm completely heartbroken that, you read his story and it's just tragic. And it's upsetting that he died the way he did. And he had a lot of great work ahead of him. And it's just upsetting. Nobody messes with the Jesus. Jesus. I love how so many people thought Abe Vigoda died as he did on film. There was a website. Oh, man, I thought he died for a year. I thought he was dead before he died. For a long time, I was like, he's dead. Yeah, maybe Jim Caviezel is Fredo from The Godfather. You never thought of that, did you? He might be the same man. It could just be a mirror that's not familiar what you're looking in and seeing. That would be an amazing plot twist. He just pulls the mask off Jim Caviezel. It's like, hey, I won't get naked in movies. Boom, I was in the conversation. I was the guy that worked with Gene Hackman in half that movie. Hey, Pat, is Zack Snyder returning for Justice League 2? Is WB going to get a different director? Of course they're going to get a different director. I'm going to say right now, Zack Snyder is not going to direct another movie for WB, a superhero film. No. I will say that's official. That doesn't mean he won't produce on a movie or work on a movie or be involved in some level. He will not be directing, no. Not at all. I would say it's such a low percentage chance of it happening. Patty Jenkins is more likely to get that job if they do that, or even Weed. There's a lot more people that are up for that job than Zach at this point, and I think Patty Jenkins is probably going to be getting more sway than Zach is. Her film was more successful than his films, basically, and her film was better received and all that, you know. So you just have to look at that. I would say that I'd say Zach's no longer at the top of the list for WB. It's upsetting what happened to him in his life and with his daughter, and I'm upset about that. But I think WB's happy with everything involved. He's making a sequel, or are you joking? Zack Snyder is not currently working on a sequel to Justice League, is he? I don't think he is at all. I think they talked about it, but they're not like filming anything. I love how I Google Zack Snyder and Google doesn't even try to correct me. Gibson wouldn't do Passion 2 no matter what he gets offered. Neither would anyone want to make a movie like that. Well, man, Passion 2 just would be a horrible idea to make. Jesus, that'd be a terrible idea. Like, when he made that first film, that was a brilliant time to make and release that movie. That was a genius time to make that film. Like, the actual choice to make it in that era, that was so smart on Mel Gibson's part and everyone involved. Like one of the smartest productions of all time, really. Oh, you're talking about the Passion. Well, I get that. Okay, I thought you were talking about them. Because the comments are like, somebody will write Justice League and then somebody below that will reply to something. Honestly, what are the odds that WB executive killed Schneider's daughter to get him out of the... Oh my god. That's brutal, man. I don't know. Maybe we'll find that news out later. It is one of those things. Like, where's that going to go? Looking back at 2017 highlights, do you think Gal Gadot... Is it Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot? I've heard it's Gadot, but then I used to say Gadot. But I think it's Gal Gadot, is that correct? I don't want to get her name wrong. I used to say Gadot, but that was, I think it's Gadot. Do you think Gal Gadot will be towards or even at the top? You mean, like, I think she's gonna... Do I think coming out this year being successful, being in that movie? Yes. She's going to have a great year. She's going to have a terrific year. She was in one of the most successful superhero films ever made, not just this year, ever. Like, that film was... 412 domestic is big money. And I'd say she's the Iron Man and Deadpool for WB right now. If they handle that right, if they nurture her right and that thing, they have a really big franchise on their hands with that. Wonder Woman really caught on. What are your thoughts on Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ as a movie? Man, I've only seen it twice, and when I first saw it, I was a teenager. But I remember it being a very powerful movie. A lot of people don't like it and just say it's torture porn, and that it's just an exploitation film for 2 hours. And I get what they mean, because it really is in a lot of ways. It's like there's a half-hour sequence where Jesus is just getting the crap beat out of him. But having said that, the T is pronounced in Hebrew, not in French. Okay, because I've heard people say it different ways, and I don't know how you're supposed to... Yeah, because people have said... I've just watched so many videos, and people say it differently, so I'm like, well, what is it? You know, I'm like, I want to get it right. I don't want to... I guess that's just the problem being American. We read this stuff. But anyway, thank you for letting me know, though. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how to say it specifically. Thank you. What is your thoughts on Mel Gibson's Passion, though? I think it's a compelling movie. I actually think Jim Caviezel was amazing as Jesus. I actually think it's one of the most underrated performances. Uh, so it's Dote or Godot, like like I know she's Jewish. Uh, so it's Godate or what did he say up here? The T is pronounced in Hebrew. Oh, the T. Okay. All right. I see. So it's Gail Gadot. Is it Gadot? Gadot. Gail Gadot. But yeah, I'm not well versed in the Hebrew, but I know I got some Jewish people in the chat here. Yeah, because I've heard people say Gail Gadot, and I've heard people say Gail Gadot, and then I've heard people say just think of bread dough, then a T. Okay, so it's dote, like dough, then a T, then dote. So it's Gadot. It's Gail Gadot. Okay. Thought main tray of Cartman Trump for South Park season 20 rather than Mr. Garrison. I don't think it really matters. I don't really think that really matters in retrospect, whether they would have done that or not. But yeah, okay, cool. All right, people. So you now have now we know how to say her name, Wonder Woman, Diana. That's hopefully that's an appealing name, but hopefully it yeah, I want some bread too. Wait, is it kosher bread though? That's the thing. Is it what kind of bread? What kind of bread are we talking about here, Blood Money? I know enough about Jews to know you guys don't eat just anything. You probably do. You don't seem like a very devout practicer of the Jewish traditions. I'm sure you like pork. But yeah. Okay, so Gail Gadot. All right. I'll remember that. Thank you. I want bread too, man. I want bread, the band, and I want bread, the actual thing, and I want just bread everywhere. I just want bread all over the place. I want to be hearing bread's music while I eat bread. Okay, we're at an hour and 43, so let's get to Thor Ragnarok, man. I don't know, we're going to... Wow, oh my god, wow. Amazing. I didn't know it would be 650 million. Wow. Well, this film's a big hit. This film was, it already opened over 100 million internationally on its first weekend. She looks kosher. Apparently, Warner are considering using Flashpoint movie to soft reboot the DCU. I've heard that too. At least DC didn't use the same DCU films universe. Try saying the DCFU. It would be great if Richard Stanley could direct a big budget film. But anyway, its first weekend this film came out, it made like 100 million at the foreign box office. Then the second weekend, it was the domestic opening was 122 million with the foreign box office, and I think last weekend it was at 427 million or somewhere around there. And I said, okay, well, this will probably make at least $500 million at the foreign box office and 300 mil domestically. I think it's going to make a little bit more than $500 million at the foreign box office. It's already at 438, and it hasn't been out that long. Now, it's in all of its international markets right now, but it's holding very well. I'm not quite sure what it brought in this weekend internationally, but domestically, that 56 million second weekend, while not great, is not bad either. It's a 53% drop. That's pretty normal for films that have a big opening, but it's at 211 million domestically right now. It probably won't make much more than 300 million if it gets there. I just can't see it. I could see it. I don't even know if it'll make 300 million. I could see it ending at like 285 to 290, but it'll probably make 300 million. But this international box office, man, it's already at 650 million worldwide at 180. So like, I just have to assume this is going to make well over 500 million at the foreign box office. This is way outpacing Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at the foreign box office, not domestically, but at the foreign box office. So I said I thought this film would wrap up over 800 million worldwide. It might do even better than that. I don't know if it'll pass Spider-Man Homecoming, but man, that would be something, wouldn't it? If this made more worldwide than Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, that's an amazing total. So what do you guys think will be the final total for Thor Ragnarok? Let's make that the new game, because predicting weekend by weekend will become kind of pointless down the road. So let's say, okay, it's at 211 right now and 438 foreign. So I don't know. What do you guys? It's definitely going to make 500 million. It might make 600 million at the foreign box office. Now this pacing's amazing. It's making a lot of money fast. But yeah, which the studios like. They like to make their money quick. But 650 already, that's an incredible total. That's already better than the previous... Well, no, Thor 2 did. No, I think... Didn't Thor 2 wrap up at like 640... Or did Thor 2 make 700 million? It might have made 700 million. Let me go back and look. Nope, Thor 2 did 644 million. So this has already surpassed Thor 1 and Thor 2 at the box office. In a couple of weeks, it's done it already. So yeah, let's say this ends up at 290 mil domestic. If they make 600 and if they make 550 to 600 million at the foreign box office, you know, I mean, you're looking at you know, $850 million to $900 million worldwide film, if not better. It might not be done. Yeah, I'm thinking 800 and yeah, I'm thinking 800 and 890 is a good guess. Man, if it does 890, that'll put it ahead of Wonder Woman and Spider-Man this year. So this is crazy. It's interesting that certain Marvel franchises go from doing all right to doing big business. Man, it's nurturing franchises, man. Marvel's so good at this. Nobody else gets this like Marvel does. Maybe with Star Wars for a while. Oh, man, if it made $1 billion, which you can't rule it out. It's possible the international numbers could. I think it's unlikely, but that would be crazy. But you got to look at what Marvel did here. They made the first Thor movie, and then they kind of screwed up on that second one. A lot of people didn't like it. But because of the Avengers, I agree you have to consider Hulk in this. But because of the Avengers, you know, Thor gets really popular in that film and Age of Ultron. There was the Avengers effect. It gives them a bigger audience. And then, yeah, this is the first film to have the Hulk in it outside of the Avengers flicks, the Mark Ruffalo Hulk. And, yeah, I think it was a mix of things. The trailers were great. The trailers were really good, actually. Cate Blanchett, I think, brought appeal to it. Loki always does well. People love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. You have Chris Hemsworth, who's, you know, slowly becoming a movie star, at least in these kinds of movies. And, yeah, a lot of factors to consider. But I'd say it was just good marketing. Same reason Guardians of the Galaxy did well, because the marketing was great. They had a great trailer, and it sold people on the movie. And I think that's what this movie was. You know, a movie like Ant-Man, it had an okay opening weekend and then had really good word of mouth and made 500 million worldwide. That's different. Some Marvel films are different. Some have a surprising opening weekend, but yeah, the post-Avengers effect, man, like Iron Man 3, 1.3 billion worldwide. Captain America Civil War, 1.1 billion. This film's making crazy money. Yeah, Iron Man 3 made 1.3 billion. It didn't just make $1 billion, it made well over $1 billion. It almost did as well as Age of Ultron. Iron Man 3 came out right after the Avengers, and that Avengers boost was huge for that movie. Big time. But no one handles their stuff like Marvel does, man. Like, you know, look at Marvel like Black Panther. You know, Doctor Strange opened at 85 million and ended up making 677 million worldwide. You know, they're so clever with this stuff. I would be shocked if Black Panther didn't open to over $100 million. I think it's possible. I think Black Panther could have an opening weekend of 100 million. They do such a great job with, and I'm not the world's biggest Marvel fan, but they're geniuses with marketing. Now they release the films. They make it where they make every film a little bit bigger. Like Doctor Strange was a much bigger epic film than the early Iron Man movies. So it makes more money worldwide, right? But it doesn't cost that much more. And then, you know, Civil War, Captain America Civil War is a third Cap film, but it's also like an Avengers movie. So it makes a lot of money. You know, they're so... And then Spider-Man Homecoming now made 880 million worldwide, even though Sony, that was their movie. But Marvel is basically an MCU film. They made that movie. Now they have Spider-Man. I mean, Marvel's just kind of killing it. Let's break this out. This is a crazy thing. Marvel's had 3 movies come out this year, I think, right? Was it 3? They've had this and Guardians. 3 movies. All three of them opened over $100 million. Thor opened $122 million. Spider-Man Homecoming opened to $117 million. And Guardians of the Galaxy 2 opened to $146 million. Three different films that are part of three different franchises, basically. The Guardians franchise, the Thor franchise, and Spider-Man all opened over $100 million. And all of them, it looks to me, because all are going to make over $800 million worldwide. Guardians 2 made $863 million. Spider-Man made $879 million. And this film's going to make over $800 million. So they're going to have three films this year that all made $850 million, if not more, $850 and more. And they all, I mean, that's amazing. That's the kind of box office you want when you're a studio. You want it where you have multiple properties bringing in that kind of money, because then the wealth can be shared by everyone, and Thor gets to be popular and sell merchandise, Spider-Man gets to stay popular and come back, now he's part of the MCU, he's home, they call it Homecoming, cleverly call it Homecoming. Guardians 2 continues that franchise, Thor is going to probably meet the Guardians and then go into Infinity War. They did a really good job this last year. And all of the films got pretty... I mean, Guardians didn't get the reviews of the first film, but this film and Spider-Man Homecoming got great reviews. So Marvel's having a hell of a year. And then Disney has Beauty and the Beast, which is the highest grossing film of the year so far. And then they got Last Jedi coming out in December. So once again, Disney is just dropping the mic and showing everyone else how it's done. Marvel are used to selling concurrent iterations of the same product. And they do it like they do in the comics cameos because it costs them relatively nothing. That's the thing. What makes the Marvel movies, why they make so much money, is they took the approach that the comic books did for years, and people didn't think that you could... Because comic books don't make the money that movies do. I think the highest selling comic book is X-Men 1. I think sold 10 million copies. The Chris Claremont book from the 90s. I think that's that or Watchmen, but I'm pretty sure it's that X-Men book is the highest selling comic. But the idea of how to keep comic books relevant, they're still relevant after all these years. They just applied that to the movies, and it took a long time for people to catch on to that you could keep these... Yeah, it's like what a comic book does, like you said. They rebrand something that's basically the same, but they keep rebranding it in different packages to where you don't really know you're getting the same thing, but you also want the same thing. It's definitely genius. Does the movie have anything to do with the comic series Thor Ragnarok from the 70s? I don't know how much of it... It has points from the Ragnarok storyline. A lot of the stuff in this movie is from the comic books. No, maybe not so much of the humor, but some of the actual plot points are from straight up from Thor comics. I'm not the biggest Thor fan, but there is definitely some. You'll see some Ragnarok, and there's a lot of Jack Kirby in it actually, quite a bit. Yeah, there is the post Avengers effect for sure. Justice League doesn't look set to gross that much more than Wonder Woman, though. I agree. I don't think Justice League will make much more than like $850 worldwide. And when you compare that to Spider-Man, Thor, and Guardians, it's going to look pathetic because there's a movie with Batman, The Flash, Superman's going to be in it, and that's confirmed pretty much by all the trailers. Wonder Woman's in it, Cyborg, which let's just not even count him. They say that audiences that they polled, the thing they're reacting to the most is Jason Momoa as Aquaman, so that might end up being a factor for them that might really play well leading into Aquaman. Like, if Aquaman could be a hit too, just like Wonder Woman was, then they might have something there and they might be able to save themselves a little bit. Even if Justice League isn't a big movie, they might be able to keep the train going if they fix some things right now. Do you have a feeling that Thor 3 will have a bigger total than Justice League? I mean, it's possible. It's not something to rule out. It's definitely possible that Thor 3 could end up having a bigger worldwide total than Justice League, depending on how well it does. It might not look like it, but if DC movie continue to make $800 million consistently, they'll still be in the higher tier of comic book movies. Yeah, but the problem is the cost, man. They spend too much money. This movie's making the same amount of money that Justice League would make at 800-something million, and they just cost less. Wonder Woman's the only movie where they did a good job with the budget. It's just budgets that hurt DC. DC movies make money, they just cost too damn much. Man of Steel made $700 million worldwide. That wasn't bad, but they spent way too much money making it, marketing it. Same thing with Batman v Superman. They made a $250 million movie and then spent $100 million marketing it, if not more. And then Justice League, they're spending outrageous amounts of money on it. You know, if they could just keep their budgets tight and handle that well, they would be doing well. But Yeah, you have to look at how much it costs, how much it makes. Thor's going to make more profit. Spider-Man's probably going to make more profit, and Guardians than Justice League. They'll probably all make more profit. Hell, Doctor Strange made the same profit that Batman v Superman made. Like at the end of the year, Deadline ranks the movies that made the money, and Doctor Strange made like 120 million profit, and Batman v Superman made like 110 to 120 million profit. So Doctor Strange made as much money for the studio as Batman v Superman did. Those aren't good numbers for a Batman Superman movie at all. When Doctor Strange's first movie is making the same amount of profits that Batman and Superman are making, you screwed up. You spent way too much money on the movie. You paid people way too much. I think Henry Cavill was a bust. I think them putting a lot on Henry Cavill didn't pan out. And DC shows they can get the opening weekends. Batman v Superman had a huge opening weekend, 166 million. Man of Steel had a huge opening weekend. Suicide Squad did pretty well though. That's one where but even Suicide Squad, they made like 130 to 150 million off that movie. It was one of their most profitable films. Even that's the Thor's going to do better. I mean, like, Marvel's just making more money at the end of the day, and that's the problem. You know, it's about profits, and Marvel's just killing it with profits, while DC, they're not making enough profit for how much they're putting in. Like, Batman v Superman needs to make more money than 120 mil. It needs to make a few hundred million. Pat, appreciate what you do on this channel. I really enjoy this show, podcast, whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know what it is either. Let's just call it a show. I'm started to number it now, though. I think that's a good idea, so people can get it. Because I thought, man, like, yeah, Box Office Addict, if you want to go back and watch the first episode, it's going to be tough to find, and it's all kind of a mess. So I'm going to try to give them like, hey, this is episode 18, this is episode 19, 20. But it's crazy we've been doing this 17 weeks. I appreciate you watching the content, Destiny Captain. But yeah, that's the problem. DC's not good at handling their budgets. Outside of Wonder Woman, that was well budgeted. And it made more money than their other films. Like, Wonder Woman pretty much outperformed everything else they worked on. And the profits they're making are crazy. It's just kind of ridiculous. No, don't get me wrong. During the Chris Nolan era, they were making a lot of money. They made a crap load of money off Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. They made a lot of money off those two movies, especially. But, yeah, they're not making that kind of money right now. While Marvel's making Thor a popular character, and you know, all of the Marvel characters seem to have the ability to have a huge box office hit. DC can't make like a successful big Superman movie. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and they just spent there's no reason Man of Steel should have cost as much as they did. They were overreaching. They wanted to make a film that would make $1 billion. That's what they wanted it to do. They spent all the money on it, and what they should have done is think, hey, maybe this movie will make $700-800 million, so let's spend $150 million on it. Instead, it cost $225 million. They spent $225. That was the budget of the Avengers. Man of Steel cost as much as the Avengers did. That is a terrible way to budget your movie. Terrible. I mean, they spent way too much on it. It just kills your profits when you spend that much money. You don't need a Superman movie to cost that much money. It didn't need that 45-minute Transformer special effects action battle between Zod and Superman that went on for legit like 40 minutes. They didn't need to spend millions of dollars to do that. They just needed to make a good Superman movie, and it would have made money. Like, Wonder Woman proves you don't need to spend the $200 million to have a big hit movie. People connect with the characters and the stories. It's not about the spectacle all the time, and they were so concerned about the spectacle with Man of Steel. That's so what that movie was focused on. They forgot everything else. Yeah, budgeting's a big issue with movies, man. Some people ignore. All right, but anyway, Thor Ragnarok is killing it. Those are great numbers. There's no way to spend that into a negative. It's one of the best performing films of the year, and Disney, Marvel continue to dominate, as they always do. So we have that. Last Flag Flying. This is Richard Linklater's new film with Steve Carell, Bryan Cranston, and Lawrence Fishburne. 241,032 theaters. Not that great. See if I forgot anything here real quick. Battle of the Sexes just kind of went away. That was a movie that I thought would do better. Goodbye Christopher Robin's not doing well. A lot of these films, man, not doing that great. There's a lot of films this year just kind of came and went really quick. A lot of indie films, a lot of indie adult dramas just seem to go that way this year. Yeah, I don't see anything worth talking. There's nothing really here worth going into, unfortunately. Everything else just kind of like, yeah. But this top three, man, what a weekend though. This was a fun weekend. Murder on the Orient Express versus Daddy's Home. The question has to be, what film will end up making more profit, I guess. As Murder on the Orient Express is cheaper, And it might end up doing better worldwide than Daddy's Home 2. And Daddy's Home 2, you know, I don't know how much back end the stars have. So we're going to have to see at the end of the year. I don't know. I don't know which film will end up making more money. The clear winner of the weekend was Thor, of course. But it was all about these two movies because these both did really well. It's great to see the top three all perform well. This helps. This helps because it's been a bad year. A lot of movies haven't been sharing the wealth, and this shows you a good weekend of sharing the wealth. You know, these three movies all doing really well, and that's a good thing for different studios. You know, you have Paramount and Fox, and then you know, Disney up here, Marvel, and it's yeah. But yeah, Thor definitely won the weekend. Obviously, it's his week, but we all knew that going in. But yeah, looking back, everything I can't see anything we're talking about here real quick. So any last questions before I go? But there goes Schneider, man. A 40-minute long fight is not fun, Schneider. It gets freaking boring, especially when it's between two invincible dudes. Oh, that fight is so boring after 5 minutes. You're totally right. A 5-minute fight would have more impact than a 10-minute fight, and the character moment was set up right. You're totally right. You're actually right. Less is always more. Always. People don't... It's always more. If you build up to something and you, it doesn't have... Empire Strikes Back, Luke and Vader, the lightsaber duel fight they have, that fight's only like 5 minutes long. But it's the way that it's cut and paced and the way that it's set up for the rest of the movie. And Joe Wright says Darkest Hour is a response to Trump. Do you think it'll affect the movie? I think that movie was going to bomb either way. Like... I don't think that film would be a hit at the box office with or without the Trump thing. I just don't think it's that kind of film that's going to have appeal. I really don't. Like it. I don't see that being a big hit anyway, so I don't think it matters. Do you like Kill Bill? No. Just say no, I don't at all, actually. I think Kill Bill's like really bad. I don't talk about it because I don't want to upset people. Because a lot of people love Kill Bill. And they think it's like a lot of people think it's Tarantino's like masterpiece, and I think it's maybe it's because I've seen all the stuff he took from like the Shaw Brothers and all that, and I've seen martial arts movies, but I don't get it, man. There's good scenes in Kill Bill, and I do like the first movie more than I think the second film's just terrible. I really do. I think the second film's just absolutely awful. I'd actually say it's Tarantino's worst movie. It's worse than Death Proof. Like I hate Kill Bill Volume 2. I think it's one of the most indulgent, poorly written, poorly thought out films of that decade. I think his writing on it's terrible. I think the dialogue is terrible in Kill Bill 2. It's laughably bad. That Superman speech David Carradine gets, the bang bang mommy scene. Oh my god! Like Kill Bill 2 is just like, to me it's a disaster. What I think would have helped Kill Bill is if he'd have told the film in order. I actually don't think the non-linear structure helped Kill Bill at all. I think it's a total mess. Because the first film's this action film that's done like a classic martial arts film, and it's under 2 hours, and it's focused, and he tells it pretty good. Then he makes a second film that's just all about flashbacks and backstory and exposition that should have been in the first movie, Quentin. You don't put all the exposition in your second movie, and then your first movie's the action film. You balance it out. The film should be cut between the two of them. It should be like... He should start with the backstory and then lead into her getting revenge, and it be a revenge film. He tries to have it both ways. He tries to make a revenge film, and then he tries to make this crappy art house. I mean, the beginning with her in the black and white driving the car. I've killed a hell of a lot of people to get to this point. Like, oh, look, Tarantino can do pulp so well. No. Then there's that pointless strip club scene. There's just pointless scenes in Kill Bill 2. Like, there's so much about a movie that's absolutely pointless to me. Like, I've watched it like 8 times, and I don't get it. It's boring. It's aimless. It's anticlimactic. It's just got really good acting and some good scenes. Kill Bill Volume 1 I do think's fun. I don't dislike Kill Bill Volume 1. But it's just a mindless exercise. And even when he's fighting the 88, when she's fighting them, and it's that action sequence, even that goes on too long and feels indulgent. I love the music cue moment, but even that, it's just like, okay, cool. It's a visually look. It goes on for 10 minutes, and it doesn't. I don't think it has momentum. I actually think that's a problem with a lot of Kill Bill. There's a lack of momentum. It just kind of sets there. I don't think it's paced very well. It just kind of drags and drags, and Quentin doesn't want to get to the damn point because he thinks he just wrote this brilliant masterpiece, and all these characters are genius and all. And I just don't think. I don't think the bride's a good character, but all his other characters are like, eh. You know, and he just seems to think it's amazing. Can you crap on Django too? Because I mean, you know, I'm not the first guy to crap on Kill Bill. I know a lot of people that don't like Kill Bill. I mean, even when it came out, no, critics loved it, and you know, people do. You just crapped on my opinion. I love your honesty and depth. I did like the eyeball pull in Kill Bill 2. Man, I'll say this right now. Kill Bill, that trailer fight's my favorite part in Kill Bill 2. When Uma Thurman and God, the mermaid chick from Splash, Daryl Hannah, I think, when they have that fight in the trailer, that's an amazing sequence. Like, that sequence where they fight in the trailer is so well, because the way he uses space in that scene, he makes a trailer feel huge. If the whole movie had been that way, I'd love Kill Bill 2. I like the moment where she punches the thing to get out of the dirt. I think that's cool. Because, you know, Quentin Tarantino's not a bad director. He makes good films, and he knows how to write and direct. Like, Kill Bill isn't a terrible movie. I'm not saying that. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't think the tone's meshed. I think it's boring. I don't find the plot and backstory compelling. I think the exposition is just there. I think it's, I would prefer to watch a Shaw Brothers movie. I prefer to go watch a Kung Fu film. I prefer to watch Enter the Dragon or something. I don't want to watch, you know, it's cool to see Uma Thurman in the outfit that Bruce Lee had and run around with the sword. And, yeah, it's a party movie. But the second one to me is just like, oh my God. I can't. I mean, I don't like Kill Bill Volume 2. Like, I remember when I first watched it, I was so excited. And I kept hearing it was amazing. Like, it's got great reviews. Like, people say it's a masterpiece. I'm like, man, I can't wait to watch Kill Bill 2. Oh, it is. Definitely. It's definitely one of the most overrated films of the 2000s. I have no problem saying that. And I'm not one of those guys that calls films overrated that easily. Like, I don't just throw that out there. But Kill Bill is easily an overrated movie. Like, it's just okay. At the end of the day, it's just okay. It's nothing more than that. Oh, Kill Bill 2 has horrible pacing. It really does. It's got horrible pacing. That scene where she goes to talk to the guy before she meets Bill that goes on for like 8 minutes. The guy she meets to go find Bill's final location, and they just talk for like 8 minutes about nothing. Just a bunch of pointless dialogue for 8 minutes. It's one of his most pointless films, Kill Bill 2. The dialogue has no... Like, there's clever little things in there, but there's no substance to what anyone's saying the entire movie. It's one of his most shallow films. Kill Bill 2. Well, Kill Bill 1, I think, is an exercise in pure adrenaline and action, and I can go with that. The second film's trying to be a piece of art, and it's terrible. It's like watching a student filmmaker get a budget and try to do something. You're asking me about Django? Okay, I'll say this about Django. The first half of Django's good, in my opinion. The first half of Django with Christoph Waltz, and when he first meets Jamie Foxx the slave, and they go to the towns, and he kind of becomes his sidekick, and it's a Western at that point. And it's about this guy who's teaching this slave how to, like, be his own man and be a hitman together. And they're having those conversations, like when he shoots the kid's father. I think those are all some of Tarantino's best stuff. I really do. I think some of that stuff was great. I like hearing Jim Croce when they get on the horses. I think the first half about those guys' relationship and them forming this bond during Slave, and in particular Christoph Waltz, what I liked is that he didn't just play the Jew hunter again, from and a lot of people say he did, but he didn't. There's another layer of depth to the character he plays as the dentist, in Django. For the first half, there's a layer of depth to that character where he has a lot of things going on in his mind, to what's happening. And yeah, I like the KKK sequence, even though the KKK wasn't a thing then, but that's a funny scene. I love the mass sequence. I like the movie a lot up until a point. I love when they go to that one plantation, and the guy's all like, he's like, all right, now you go take him around. Remember, he's not a slave. And she goes, you want me to treat him like the white folks? And he's like, no, I didn't say that. No, hold on. That's funny stuff, man. I think Django Unchained, the first half of it is fun because it's a Western comedy. It's a Western comedy in the vein of like a Blazing Saddles. And I think it really works in that way. I think that it's funny. I think it's entertaining. It's got a grand, it feels like a grand old Western. And then Leonardo DiCaprio comes in. And the film gets so over the top and crazy, it almost ruins everything. Once Leo comes in and they have that body fighting, the Mandingo fighting, and it's this way over the top sequence, and then the N-word just starts coming out every other second because Quentin Tarantino likes to pretend that there wasn't other pejoratives at the time outside of the N-word, even though Quentin, there was plenty of pejoratives they called black people except the N-word, but Quentin Tarantino doesn't care because the N-word has more impact, so I'm going to overuse it and have every other line be the N-word because I'm an artist and I'm going to be true to slavery, even though I'm telling a fantasy story about slavery that's not realistic. I got to be truthful to history. Yeah, Quentin, it's so great when you're a historian, when you choose to be. And then at the end, he's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to kill Hitler. This didn't happen this way, but I'm a historian. I got to be true to the facts. Oh, I'm going to use the N-word to a crazy degree and make my point gone. Blazing Saddles uses the N-word 17 times in 90 minutes and makes a better point than Quentin did for 3 hours. Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor had more to say than Quentin Tarantino on race. Quentin Tarantino actually has nothing to say on race. His views on race, his discussions on race, as a guy who grew up in a black neighborhood and thinks he's black and talks black and acts black, his actual art when discussing race is so shallow it's laughable. He clearly has no he doesn't want to add layers to it. To him, it's Django's biggest flaw is in the second half. It becomes a white man's fantasy of what a black man's revenge would be in slave times. It's a white man's view of a cartoonish character getting revenge on cartoonish white people. That's the problem with Django. The first half is a compelling film that's about a hitman who takes the slave in and they form a bond, a brotherhood, and work together to find humanity in each other in a screwed up world. That is good stuff. The second half is a lot of the same issues that Inglourious Basterds had. It's 10 movies thrown into one. It turns into a music video. There's that sequence where the shootout happens and Jamie Foxx is putting there's rap samples of Jamie Foxx audio clips with rap music while Django's in a shootout. Oh my god. Just tone and pacing. To Django's credit, for being a 3-hour movie, it's actually paced really well. It moves fast. It's like a 3-hour music video. And I like Django, actually. I think it's alright, but man, like, it ends with horse tricks. It's like, oh my god, Quentin, like, yeah, what a serious slavery film. I love when he's in interviews and he talks all serious like he made 12 Years a Slave or something, and then you watch the movie he made, and it's a cartoon. It turns into a Looney Tunes movie in the final 15 minutes. It's completely comical. And then he's all like, yeah, I made this serious slave. It's like, no, you didn't. You made a comedy. You made a comedy. What the hell is wrong with you? You did not make a serious slavery film. If anything, you made you basically made an exploitation film set in slave times with a lead character that is so ill-defined and so poorly thought out as the lead that you basically could have almost cut Django out of the movie and it wouldn't affect the movie that much. So, dude, you said Kill Bill 2 was like a student film. I wish I knew. You're a true film nerd. It is like a student film. You know how many student films I saw that are like Kill Bill Volume 2? With her driving the car in the black and white and saying that dialogue. I've seen that so many times at like a film festival with students. None of that was impressive. Oh, well, look. It's like, are you kidding? Am I supposed to be impressed by that? That's laughable. It's like, it's obvious. It's so obvious. It's like I can't believe the same guy made Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown. It legit blows my mind. He talks about how he wanted to hold on to that indie side of him. And then once he did Kill Bill, he knew he was a Hollywood director. Well, I miss indie director Tarantino because Hollywood director Tarantino gets too involved in his vices and he goes in too many places. He doesn't focus. He says he writes these scripts like they're novels and then he makes them into movies. And it's like, oh, come on, man. It's like, I'm not, I feel that way. I mean, people are going to come on here. I'm going to get comments on this video. I know people are telling me Kill Bill 2 is a masterpiece and I didn't get it and I'm dumb. Nope. Hate to tell you guys. I'm not dumb. It's not a masterpiece. It's overrated junk. You don't want to see it. That's fine. Film is subjective. If you enjoy the movie, that's fine. It's not a genius masterpiece. You're not going to convince me of that. And it's not. I love when people add their own meaning to movies too. Like anyone could I could take any film, a bad movie or a good movie, and make it sound better than what it is. I can make it sound way more complex. When you know actually how to talk about movies and how to dissect them in stories, you can make anything sound good or bad. Pauline Kael was genius at this. Ebert was great at this. You can make any movie sound good or bad. It's a technique you can do. You can make a terrible movie sound like a good movie. You can make an argument for it. So when people are always like, they try to come back to you, you missed all this depth that I have that's here, and I'm going to list all these things to you. It's like, dude, I'm glad that you add that meaning onto a shallow film. That's fine that you can do that. I'm not going to add that meaning onto a shallow film. The film's not more enjoyable because I know those extra layers you give me that you enjoy about it. That's because you like the film, and those things are making it more rich to you. If I don't like the film, those things don't change the viewing experience for me. Just because I know all the cool stuff that was involved in Alien 3 with the Ox and all that and the religious subtext, Alien 3 is still a really boring movie to me. It's still really, really boring. Okay, so it doesn't mean that, like, oh no, I'm changing it right now. My mind's changed because, oh, you told me the subtext. Subtext doesn't make a bad movie a good movie just because the director was thinking about things when he was making the movie. Every director does that. You don't think Brett Ratner thinks about shots when he's making them? The Kong Skull Island director's perfect for this when he talks about how it was about nihilism in the Vietnam War and the commentary. And then you go watch it and that stuff's all obvious. It's clearly some hacky guy whacking off trying to be an artist with some blockbuster instead of just making the fun movie he was supposed to make. Piss off. Or the new Death Note movie, Adam Wingard made it about the America intervening in the Middle East and all that stuff. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that brilliant subtext makes that terrible Death Note movie so good. Subtext doesn't make your work good. It doesn't make it a good story. It doesn't mean you made a good movie. Extra, all these layers, I mean, oh, this is from some work of literature. Oh, this is from a play. Oh, Tarantino, he's so genius. He took this shot from a Samuel Fuller film. Oh, he took this shot from a New Wave film. This is Jean-Luc Godard. Oh, he took. Who cares? Who cares? Everyone does that. Everyone. What world are you living in? Michael Bay has seen every Stanley Kubrick film. I promise you, he has seen Stanley Kubrick's films. Like, are you freaking kidding me? This praise to Tarantino. Tarantino is a scholar of film, and he writes terrific work on film. He's great discussing it. He's one of the best film critics we have, and I can't wait for him to write film books. He is a remix artist. He just takes a bunch of other stuff and remixes it. What he's great at is dialogue, and he's great at casting actors. But if you know the work of David Mamet, you've seen Quentin Tarantino. If you've read the books of Elmer Leonard, you know what Quentin Tarantino's doing. And I'm sorry, David Mamet does it better, and Elmore Leonard does it better in his books. Okay? By far. Everything Tarantino, excluding maybe Pulp Fiction, which is the one masterpiece he made, which did transcend all of his other work, and I still think he's a genius for making that film. That doesn't negate that his films recently have pacing issues. They are messy. They have too many things in them at once. They're over long. Pulp Fiction wasn't too long at 2.5 hours. Django and Inglourious Bastard are both over long. I mean, it's just, I just hate it because you can never criticize Tarantino. It's just blanket, he's a genius, and you have to accept his genius. Even when I like his movies. Like, I thought Hateful Eight was a lot of fun. I actually thought Hateful Eight was his best movie in a long time. And it was still just good. Like, come on, and like, David Fincher has been doing so much better work than him. Paul Thomas Anderson, like, has Tarantino made anything like There Will Be Blood? At least PTA did that. I don't like Inherent Vice in that, but he still made that movie. Like, what has Tarantino really done? He always talks about Inglourious Bastards like it's his best film. It's like, dude, and I do like Inglourious Bastards, because for a couple reasons. I'll give you 3 reasons why. Michael Phillips' review of that movie is perfect. There's 2 scenes in that movie that are genius, and Christoph Waltz's performance. The opening 20 minutes of Inglourious Bastards is great, and the tavern sequence with Michael Fassbender is great, and they're 2 of the best things Tarantino ever directed. They're suspenseful, they're well written, they're serious. The acting's off the charts. Michael Fassbender kills it in Inglourious Bastards. And then Christoph Waltz is great throughout the whole movie, and I do like the first sequence with the bastards. But once again, it's an unfocused movie. He's making this revenge, subtitled French art film with this chick. Then he's making the Bastards movie. And then he's making the film following Christoph Waltz, and it's just a mix of things. It turns into an exploitation film with Sam Jackson era. It's Hugo Stiglitz. And then it goes back into being a serious war film. And then it goes back to being a comedy. It's, once again, he's just throwing everything at the screen and hoping it sticks. Instead of saying, hey, why not make that revenge film, which I would have liked to have seen? Or why not make the film about the Inglourious Bastards? I thought it was going to be Dirty Dozen, Man on a Mission movie. Or why not make the film about the Jew hunter? Why not make... There were so many movies he could have made from Inglourious Bastards that were great. And he made like 4 movies, and it ends up hurting all of those other films because you lose focus on the bastards at points, you lose focus on her character, you lose focus on just the drama that's going on. And what sucks is if you look at sequences in Django, that tavern sequence, that's a great scene. That was a great scene. Like when I love the writing in that scene where he does the German 3, and she goes, Germans do 3 like this. You did it like this, and then that's an amazing sequence. How the suspense builds up, and it's got a lot going on in it about the kid having the birthday, and it humanizes the Nazis and humanizes. It's a great, in the way he uses space in that sequence. He makes a scene at a table more intense than anything else in that movie. And the opening 20 minutes is the way. If Tarantino had kept that up throughout all of Inglourious Bastards and not got so indulgent in like his Her's one of my favorite movies of the last decade, so yes, I love Her. I just love Spike Jonze. Spike Jonze is just amazing. Another guy I prefer to Tarantino. I'll take Spike Jonze over Tarantino right now as a filmmaker. But yeah, it's you know, I mean, I let me put it this way. I'd give Inglourious Bastards like a 7, and I think it's really good and entertaining, and I've seen it like 8 times, and I'm always entertained by it. But it's fluffy. It's obvious entertainment. There's obvious comedy. It's an obvious crowd pleaser. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy when Brad Pitt goes, "Donnie, we got a Nazi out here who wants to die for his country. Oblige him." You know, that's funny. I enjoy that stuff. But, you know, compare that to the stuff that's in Pulp Fiction, man. It's not, you know... And a lot of people seem to think, because Tarantino, this might be my masterpiece. That's the way to fool you at home to thinking it's his masterpiece, too, because he believes it. But I'm not saying I did. I saw them both in the theater, and I enjoyed both of them, though. Like, I'm not trying to say they're bad movies, but the fact that Tarantino gets this, like, he keeps making 9 out of 10s, or Matt's like, what? Where the heck is that? Like, he hasn't made a film that I would call great for me since Jackie Brown, and I do think Jackie Brown's a good to great movie, but yeah. That's just my thoughts, though. If you love Tarantino, that's fine. That's completely fine. Everyone can love Tarantino. Yes, Her by Spike Jonze is one of the better movies, not just from a direction standpoint. The cinematography by Hoyt van Hoytome, I think is how you say his name. He shot Dunkirk. It's one of the best shot films. And what was brilliant about what Spike did with that is that he took the HAL 9000 character from 2001 and said, hey, why don't we do a romantic story with that? Even though there was kind of a Black Mirror episode that sort of played with some of those things. But he's like, hey, why don't we do a romantic story with this stuff that was in 2001 with Hal and David? And that's kind of his starting point. And then he builds off that, adds a lot of real honest stuff from his actual life. Because that is about him and Sofia Coppola getting divorced. That's clearly what it's about. And that's clearly about how he moved on from that divorce and how she affected his work and it affected her and vice versa. And it's all of his aesthetics that he developed as a music video director with the montages and the music. And Arcade Fire's score with his imagery created something that really was like poetry. I think there's just scenes in that movie where the Joaquin Phoenix's character is going around, and you get it. It's the sci-fi Annie Hall. It's the movie that's more about relationships than the sci-fi concepts, and the way that Annie Hall's more about relationships than totally the comedy. I'd go to the montage scene where they're the guys like dancing with the hat and him and her watching. Very much Annie Hall. It's a lot of little blurbs of a relationship kind of put together, and then at the end it's like a statement on love and loss and regret and memory and what we hold on to. But Her goes a little bit more deep, a little bit bigger with it, but it's just as existential. That's the film I compare it the most to is Annie Hall, that it reminded me of in a lot of ways. Oh yeah, Bing John Malkovich and Adaptation, both masterpieces. I prefer Her to Lost in Translation, but I love Lost in Translation. So don't miss. Lost in Translation is also one of my favorite movies. I think that's a total masterwork. They're companion pieces. It's really beautiful. He's clearly the photographer in that ignores his wife in Lost in Translation, and she's clearly the ex-wife in Her. And it's great to see how they visually share some things, and how both of those films, what I like about both of them is that they're personal. That's about Sophia and how she views the world and how she grew up, and how it's just basically being in a world of fame, and then the mundane feelings of that, being around her or going to a different place, and how she just shot Japan was so beautiful, in Tokyo. And I feel the same way about Spike Jonze. You know, I think he shot that movie in Hong Kong, and they feel like spiritual films in a lot of ways. I think they share a lot spiritually, and I think you can watch them together, and they're also Charlie Kaufman's Anomalisa kind of falls into that category somewhat. I think the fact he made it after his real life added such a human tone. I agree. I think that's the best part of Her is the things where you think, oh, is this about him? Like that scene where he says, sometimes I feel like I felt everything I'm ever going to feel, and I'm never going to feel anything new, just lesser versions of feelings I've already felt. I swear to God, Spike Jonze probably had that conversation with someone. And the fact that he was in that relationship with Karen O, and they write the song together, The Million Miles Away, and it's on the track, and Karen O kind of feels to me like kind of what Samantha is in that movie. There's just a lot of good things like that. I love that about that movie. You know, because people always just praise the themes of the movie and how well together it's held thematically in the subtext. But really what makes that movie work is that it's personal from Spike. Because he never really wrote his own screenplay totally. And that was his first, like, straight-up all-original film he wrote and did. And it showed that he had talent in different areas and that he was inspired in new ways. Hey, Pat, several movie fans whose opinions I respect give Zack Snyder movies credit for the intended subtext for each respective movie. I think they're all morons. I'll put it that way. I'm just going to be mean about it. It's moronic. It's not impressive. The subtext in Zack Snyder's movies is laughable. It's the most basic kind of religious or literary subtext you could have, like the stuff with Lenny Luthor in Batman v Superman and the painting and all that. It's like, oh, come on. It's not subtle at all, and it doesn't show Zack's intelligence. Here's the problem. All he does is go, hey, here's this thing that's famous that someone else did. I'm going to steal it and put it in my thing, and then it'll make my thing smart. He doesn't actually explore the idea that's in the subtext and what's there and apply it to his film. So people always try to give Batman v Superman all this depth. Like, oh, you don't get it, Superman's a god figure, and they worship him, and it's about all these different things about the country and the military and all that. And it's like, guys, that stuff's all obvious when you watch the movie. It still doesn't make it... That's obvious stuff. It's not deep subtext when you watch a movie and go, wow, I didn't know about that. It's obvious stuff to anyone who's read a book. Maybe if you're a kid, it's cool, but when you're an adult, it's like, well, yeah, this is just... People, they act like... Watch any interview with Zack Snyder. He's not an intellectual. He doesn't even understand the comic books he's adapting. How the hell am I supposed to think that guy, like, gets the Odyssey or something like that? He understands James Joyce or something like that. I don't consider... I don't think he's doing the Fountainhead or you know, like... It gets ridiculous. That people give that to Zack Snyder. I mean, the Jesus stuff in Man of Steel, I get in arguments with people all the time. It's that they add all this extra meaning that clearly Zack put in there because they saw it and they got it, so they think they're smart because they get what he was saying in the movie. Like, oh, I get what that reference is, so I'm smart. It makes me smart. It's like, that doesn't make you smart. He literally just stole something and threw it in here. He didn't do anything new with it. That's not an interesting take. Okay, like, Woody Allen took a lot of stuff from Bergman and from Chekhov and a lot of things, but he did his own style with it and made it something else. Zack Snyder doesn't have an original bone in his body. All of his visuals are Heavy Metal Magazine. All of his... He basically just keeps ripping off Alan Moore, if anything. He just keeps trying to be Alan Moore. I always hear Best Worst Charlie... Schenectady, New York. I think his worst film's actually Anomalisa for me, Charlie Kaufman. I think that's his weakest film. Schenectady, New York, I'd put the lower tier. Although some people consider a masterpiece. I'd basically, for me, Charlie Kaufman, it would go Adaptation, Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine, Being Human, I think was the name of it. Not Being Human, Schenectady, New York, and Anomalisa is how I would rank Charlie Kaufman for me, personally. But it, you know, there is substance to it. There's a lot there. It's just one of those very esoteric films where every shot has a meaning that you have to figure out. Every line of dialogue has multiple meanings. I'm not the biggest fan of that kind of film. I mean, I like Jodorowsky and a lot of stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't know if Kaufman as a director was quite ready to handle his screenplay. I do think Spike Jonze probably could have saved a lot of problems with that movie, because it is different directing a movie than writing a movie. Charlie Kaufman's a great writer, but it's tough to direct his movies because they're so dense that to execute it visually is something in itself that you have to do. But that doesn't mean Charlie Kaufman's a bad director. I think he's decent, and I hope I've just not been a fan of his last couple films. I did not like Anomalisa them. I don't hate it, but I was so disappointed. Everyone was calling it a masterpiece. Very upsetting. Zack Snyder really loves his religious symbolism, even when the context of said imagery doesn't match the context of said scene. Oh man, it's all religious symbolism, all of it. It's all from, I mean, like, all Batman v Superman is all of these things that are, it's what he did with Watchmen. It's like he threw a bunch of stuff in there he thought meant something, but he clearly didn't get the stuff he was talking about or didn't spend any time thinking about it. He just goes, well, this stuff's smart, so if I put it in here, people will call it smart. And he doesn't get that Alan Moore is actually smart. And when he wrote that book, it was smart. You made a dumb movie out of an intelligent book. That's what Zack Snyder does. He takes smart things and makes them stupid. That's his, like, trick. Oh, man, no, you're right. Christian motifs are played out in film. We all know what it means. It's so obvious. Oh, Mother's terrible for that same reason. Same reason I don't like Silence by Scorsese. It's like, yeah, religious subtext is played out. It really is. Especially Christianity. Oh, my God. It's like, guys, I've already seen this all explored much better than you're going to do it in any of your films. I saw Pasolini's Christ film. I've seen it. I saw the guy, I think his name's Pasolini, the guy who made Salò in the 120 Days of Sodom. I saw his Jesus film. It's more interesting than any film you're going to make about religion. Even Scorsese, he already did The Last Temptation of Christ, and that always was like, yeah, dude, you don't need to follow that up again. You already made your statement. And that was my problem with Silence. It was just things he had already said before in his previous work. There wasn't a new statement. It was like, oh, wow, Silence. It's named after the silence of God. Wow, Scorsese, really deep stuff there. How clever. Oh, my God. Didn't Zack Snyder admit that every creative decision in Watchmen movie he had was because he thought it was cool? I mean, that's what he... Watch interviews with the guy. That's how he talks. He just talks and goes, that's cool. That's all cool. Yeah, really, that's a brave opinion. Yeah, you hated Mother, that movie that everyone hated? Congratulations! Callback. That's what we call a callback, people. God, did I rant for like 10 minutes? Oh my God, this went way over. Oh my God, did I rant for a half hour about Quentin Tarantino? Oh my God, that is not good. I just lost all of my subscribers. There's no way that not all of them are Tarantino fanboys. There's just no way. Every movie place you have to be a Tarantino fanboy, so I'm screwed. I just killed my channel. I'm going to have to go back to political content. No one's going to come here anymore. Like, you just trashed Scorsese and Tarantino? It's like, no, I was just... Specific movies. Yeah, you watch him in an interview, so he talks about... It's so funny. He's just sitting there with, like, a t-shirt on, and he talks like a high schooler who just started reading stuff. It's so... Oh, my God. It's... Viewer response criticisms seems to be largely worthless. It led to just over-analyzing films. What do you think? I think... I'm not sure if that's... Yeah, I feel... Yeah, because I said I wanted to end this at the 2-hour mark, and I'm looking... This has ended up being one of the longer episodes of Box Office Addict, and I'm like, oh, crap. I ranted way too long. I just clicked into rant mode and forgot how long it went by. I feel really weird now. Viewer response criticism seems to be largely... I mean, I agree. I think it's worthless. I think it, you know, you had to use the, yeah. You need to rant in every video. I know, it's just, man, it's just, I've been doing this for almost 3 hours, and other people are going to want to watch, sorry, they're going to want to watch this and hear the box office stuff, and they're not going to hear me rant about Tarantino for like an hour. I'm going to put money down. There's going to be a lot of negative comments on anyone who listens to this. And it's going to be like, people like, you didn't get Tarantino's brilliance in Django Unchained and what he was actually stating. You didn't get what movies he was actually referencing from the 70s and even earlier than that. Yeah, I did. I know where the shots come from, too. It's not impressive. Okay, yeah. It's like, cool. Cool, he took a shot from this movie. Awesome. Oh, wow, Inglourious Bastards is a play off an older film. Wow, great. An Italian film. Yeah, great. It's hilarious. Yeah, him and Eli Roth have a fun time sitting around talking about that stuff, I'm sure. No, it's just, it just gets annoying. It's like this like, everyone's a genius. If they put any depth into a movie, they're a genius. If anyone puts something half decent or intelligent into a movie, it's a masterpiece all of a sudden. It can't just be, it can't just be like, you know, it can't just be that they made a good movie or an okay movie. It has to be, it's a masterpiece, because there's such a lack of compelling good movies anymore that we cling on to anything that has substance. Like, let's be fair, Blade Runner 2049 is really good, but everyone who's acting like it's like an 11 out of 10, you know, it's one of those things, it's like, just because there's a lack of good films, it's a masterpiece. You know, it's always a masterpiece. It's never just okay or good. There's no such thing as a good movie or a mediocre movie, you know, it's okay. No, it's not that. It's just opinions, man. People are different. Just because someone likes Zack Snyder or Quentin Tarantino movies that doesn't mean they're wrong. They're no different than me. I'm just not a fan, and I get sick of it when you're not a fan. They try to attack your intelligence or your film knowledge like you don't understand anything. It's like, that's not what it is, man. Like, stop that crap, okay? You're not like you're not an expert either, okay? It's just people sharing their opinions. Quit throwing it at me, because it just gets so boring. It's like a boring conversation. Nobody's actually talking about anything. They're just saying things to make themselves sound intelligent that they ripped from some post off Reddit or some information they got. They didn't actually take their own theory or their own analysis from the movie they watched and present it to you. They try to throw other people's things, and I don't like doing that. I like to give my own opinion on a movie, and I don't like to be like, hey, I did all the research, I'm just going to spout out what the director said in interviews. If they make it to 2.5 hours, they're probably a fan of yours. That's a good point. You put a smile on my face when you mentioned Dog Day Afternoon, my first R-rated film. Why is having some subtext references make a movie a masterpiece? I don't get it. I don't get it either, because almost every movie has that. Even bad movies have tons. You can go look at interviews with directors on terrible movies, terrible films, and they talk about them so beautifully. They had so many great ideas when they were making the movie, you know? I mean, am I supposed to be impressed? I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's not intelligent to have subtext. It's hard to make a good movie. Making a good movie requires storytelling, pacing, blocking. There's so many factors. The feel of the set. It's not just about giving the movie depth. Depth is a great element to make a movie great, but it's not the only element that makes a movie great. If that was true, then every boring art film where every shot has meaning times 10 would make every film a masterpiece, but it doesn't. Okay, Blue is the Warmest Color is not a masterpiece. It's a terrible, indulgent, exploitive film where the director does these needlessly long sex scenes that have no chemistry between the actresses or any compelling narrative, and after the first hour, he just drops his movie to talk about spaghetti, and he makes it quite frankly, a terrible film. Blue is the Warmest Color is terrible, but of course it wins the Palme d'Or because it's a 3-hour French lesbian film, so it's a masterpiece. Oh, her hair color's blue. She gets in the water and the water becomes blue. Blue is the warmest color. Oh my god, it's deep. Yeah, Miley Cyrus added subtext to the lyrics of Wrecking Ball. Okay, it doesn't make it Bob Dylan. Jesus Christ. I think people like to feel smart. I think that's all it really is. People like to feel smart, and they like art to make them feel smart. I think they like other things to do the work for them because they don't create things, they don't write, they don't direct. They want to, but they can't do it. So they have to vicariously live through others. So when they can cling on to that thing that's intelligent, it makes them feel more intelligent. Which is fine, that makes sense, but I don't like doing that because I want to make movies, I have made movies, I do write, and I want to make good stuff, and I want to make different stuff, and I just want to copy everyone else. I mean, subconsciously you're going to do things, but I don't want to be like, oh, I got to be Quentin Tarantino like every other film studio. I don't want to be Quentin Tarantino, quite frankly. I don't want to be Quentin Tarantino at all right now. I want to be myself, and I want to do stuff that not everyone else is doing. You know, you can hate on Paul Thomas Anderson right now and say his films are boring, and I totally get that, but he's at least doing different stuff. He's trying to do different things with pacing and narrative and storytelling that other directors aren't doing right now. He's at least trying to do original kinds of movies with the master. And the Phantom Thread, it looks like he's trying to do his own thing, you know? And I respect that about Paul Thomas Anderson. Even if I don't like his films, I respect what he does when he makes a movie. Because he doesn't do the traditional thing anytime. He doesn't give you what you want. Oh, Blue is the Warmest Spaghetti is a terrible movie. I can't believe how disappointing that movie was. Dude, what is normal live stream time? Somewhere around 4 to, like, 6, I'd say, is the normal time when I do it. This one's just going on way later than normal. I don't know. God, I gotta stop this. Alright, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you for watching this episode of Box Office Addict, this indulgent episode. I ended up being as indulgent as Tarantino after criticizing him. I made a 2.5 hour, a piece of art that's all over the place. If you want to see me at my best, go watch my ELO Luke Falling video. Anyway, if you watch Box Office Addict, did he really stop the movie to talk? No, there's like 10-minute sequences in that movie where they're eating spaghetti, and characters are just talking over spaghetti. I'm not kidding you. What about when PTL rips off Altman and Ashby? He doesn't always rip off Altman and Ashby, though, dude. You can't say that. He doesn't always do that. There's not a lot of, there's Altman and Inherent. The Master doesn't have that much Ashby or Altman in it at all, really. I wouldn't even say that close. And I would say in particular, the influences in There Will Be Blood in the Master are different. I'd say those are different influences. And I wouldn't necessarily, see, for me, PTA is not a total rip-off guy. Because he's clearly influenced, and he doesn't remake the same kind of movies over and over again. I mean, I'm not saying Tarantino does that. Tarantino's great, but Tarantino's films are messier. I think if PTA makes an Altman film, it's an Altman film. If he's making something like Ashby, it's like an Ashby film. I don't think he tries to do 10 different things at once. I think he decides what his movie is, and that's what it is. Like, he clearly took some Altman influence in The Long Goodbye when he made Inherent Vice, but it feels that way the whole movie, so I can go with that even if I don't like that movie. Oh, no, it's just, he gets that a lot. I don't know if Boogie Nights wasn't such a great movie, I might have more of an issue with that, but that movie's so damn good I don't care that it's just like Robert Altman and Scorsese and all that. Like, I don't care, it's so good. The Handmaiden is how blue is the warmest color. I agree with you. The Handmaiden is terrific and maybe has the best sex scenes of all time. I'm not really... The Handmaiden has some of the best sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Like, it's incredible how they did the sex scenes in that film. Absolutely incredible. I mean, like, wow. Like, really good. But I don't know. What my argument is, Blood Money, is I think PTA is trying to develop a style. I think he's trying to leave those influences and try to develop his own thing. I do think with The Master, he was trying to be his own filmmaker in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping with The Phantom Thread, he continues that. And The Phantom Thread, he's doing the cinematography. He's his own cinematographer on that. And that movie looks gorgeous. And I'm hoping having Day-Lewis back, and it's about fashion. I just think PTA, he's trying. He's trying his best to be his own filmmaker, even though he's clearly inspired by a lot of these people, too. Which, everyone is. But he doesn't do the traditional structure or pacing. He doesn't obey any of the rules. He doesn't go to make an audience happy, and I like that about PTA films, that he doesn't care if an audience enjoys them or not. That's resulted in him having a lot of bombs, but his films aren't, they are different from what comes out during the rest of the year most of the time. Like, I wasn't a big fan of The Master, but it did... it was different from anything else that came out that year, and I did like that about it. But I haven't been a fan of any of PTA's recent films, unfortunately, and I used to really like PTA. I loved Boogie Nights and Magnolia, and I really like There'll Be Blood, and I like Punch Drunk Love. I don't love it, but I like it. Everything he made after that, I'm not a big fan of. Oh, please. Yeah, no, the sex scenes in Handmaid's Tale are great. They're great. Yeah, no, it's really, well, what are we going to say? The Korean cinema and all that's just Asian cinema, they're so on another level to us when it comes to talking about sex and morality. It's even laughable when you see films here when we try. Like, you just go watch a series of Korean films and you're like, oh, wow, these are way more darker and screwed up and dealing with the complexity of human nature than any of our movies. It's not even close. Like, it's ridiculous. It's like, yeah, I'll take Park Chan-wook's work, Park Chan-wook. I'll take his work over pretty much any American filmmaker right now. His work's just more interesting when he makes a movie. And yeah, all of his films have been interesting. He's like the David Fincher of Asia. Very talented. Just like this year was such a dull year to me. And then David Lynch made Twin Peaks Season 3, and it put all of that weird crap that's been on TV and all of these art films the last day, it just put him to shame. Episode by episode, David Lynch did something bold and great, and a thesis on his own work, and commenting on nostalgia and how we view things, and he just destroyed everyone else that's been doing anything the last couple of years, and it just reminded me how mediocre things have gotten, seeing what David Lynch can do when he has the money and what he can do when he comes back. South Korea is the best place for film currently. I agree. I totally agree that Korea is the place right now for cinema. Every year there's like classics coming out of Korea. It's crazy. Like every year there's a new classic film from Korea. It's like, or several. And there's like multiple great directors there. It's just so weird. Like, and they're all genius directors. They're all like, oh, you're really good. They're all great and make great movies. Do I like Refn? Yeah, I like Refn. Yes, I do. I don't like all of Refn's movies, but his Pusher trilogy I thought was very good. I do like Bronson. The Howler Rising. I like Refn. Great eye. Just needs to find himself a little bit more, and not trying to be so many other directors that he loves so much. Yeah, no, Blue is the Warmest Color is one of the most overrated films to ever... Well, every film that wins the Palme d'Or is usually crappy. But that's one of those movies where it's like, man, I can't believe Spielberg in that. Bong Joon-ho, yeah. It is. It's been having a role for years now. I mean, for years. It's like if you go to any film festival where they show foreign movies, everyone's always excited about the Korean films. Always. You always hear people go, man, you got to see this new Korean film. Yeah. They're just so good. And the directors are so talented. It's just, I don't know what's going on. It's almost like, it's like this perfect mix of Eastern culture and Western Hollywood put together. You're right, it is the new Hollywood. You're totally right. They are like the new, they're like where Scorsese and De Palma and Coppola and Lucas and them were at in the 70s. They have the tech now over there to make the kind of movies. They know they have the knowledge now. So they're doing stuff that we wouldn't do over here. Because you're not going to, a movie like, look how bad Spike Lee's Old Boy did. It didn't do well. But, in Korea, though, that film did all right, and that's kind of how it is. All right, I need to end this, though. We're going into, we're almost at 3 hours. All right, guys, anyway, if you're a box office addict like myself, you probably sat through this, and I'm not here to help you with your addictions. I'm here to encourage you to get even worse about them and watch every episode and be addicted. It's been a great 17 weeks, which is just absolutely crazy that we've been doing this for 4 months, over 4 months. It's been a journey. It's been fun. You guys in the chat are like the greatest subscribers. Like you all have stuff to say. You all have things to say and add on to things. You don't just put out random things. You have questions that have real substance, and you make points that are good, and you challenge me, and that's what every YouTuber needs. And if I ever do get big, which I won't, but if I ever do get big, I hope we can keep it this way. Or Bathory's just gonna have to start kicking a lot of people out. I don't know. She has the power. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of Box Office Act. I will be here next Sunday. I love you guys. But let's sum it up. Murder on the Orient Express, great opening weekend. Well, good. Daddy's Home 2, very good. Thor, really, really good second weekend. Amazing worldwide box office, and it's killing it. South Korea is #1 in suicide, I believe. Why do you think that is? Because they're in Korea, and North Korea's right there. I don't know. Because it's a weird place to live. I have to assume it's probably a very unhappy place to live. I'm because of all the. I'm here to help you with your addiction. I want it to get worse. I want to be your pusher man and give you more drugs. But I'm assuming because they're just a depressing place. Because maybe they don't feel like Korea's a place that belongs to them, like because Korea's not one thing, and maybe they feel like the split between they feel because Japan's Japan, China's China, and then Korea, maybe they just feel like I don't know, maybe the Korean, I don't know. It's a good question. I'd have to look that up. I don't know why the suicides are so high there. Maybe it's just screwed up. Maybe those movies are actually tapping into what it's like to live over there. I don't know. It's extremely high among the elderly because they are forgotten. Oh, that makes sense. An old person killing themselves because they're sad. God, that's so depressing to think about. Like old people killing themselves because nobody cares about them anymore and they're just so alone and they have no one to take care of them. Jesus. Well, on that downer note, I'll see you guys next week. Wait, Quentin Tarantino, what are you doing here? Why do you have the sword from Kill Bill? Quentin, no!